No.
You get a plaque. She get a plaque with the street name.
Yes.
That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. To clarify, is it between, is it 50th between 11th and the West Side Highway, or is it between 10th and 11th? Is there a particular corner?
I am flexible. I was thinking that the closer to where all the vibrancy of the neighborhood is would make sense. However, if you wanted it closest to the water, that works.
Again,
Well, I don't know if this question is confirmed, the question is pointed, I would love to name it that day, but I very rarely was that, I heard, I don't know if you've heard of a street name after a living person. It's usually close if someone passes.
it is usually after someone passes. I was just looking up the guidelines. I think, I don't think there really are any actual set rules around it. There's just guidelines, and under extraordinary circumstances, it would be within our purview to still recommend someone being named. That being said, yes, traditionally, the person has been deceased for at least 2 years, among other factors that we can talk about that I would like to ask about. But yes, that is typically what happens.
I mean, he's a great guy.
A typical requirement.
I mean, he's a great guy, remember when it happens.
Right.
Did you engage the Hudson River Park and discuss with them the opportunity to name a pier or a plaza in the park? Because the park is really close to the river.
Yeah.
And it seemed that it would be such a great, lots of people are walking on the park. And it may have more impact than anything in the streets.
I actually have spoken to the park, and we can absolutely work with them. My thinking was, I love, again, as a New Yorker, I love the vibrancy of 50th Street, and I would love for the 15th to bring Sully to all the places I just rediscovered as I got the signatures. And I can see him getting a haircut at the barbershop, sitting for pasta at the Vino, and enjoying the people who embraced him so. I would not discount the park, of course. I know that spot on 50th Street where the plane landed would mean a lot.
I have several questions, but that's okay. So, Linda, can you just describe for me, and I'm sorry, I'm just not familiar with your background and maybe you talked a little about it, but what your background is and what your association is with Captain Sullenberger, and basically just what brought you to this point?
Absolutely. I have worked with Captain Sullenberger through the company I work for, Hiltzik Strategies. Hiltzik Strategies is a media relations company. We work with a number of high-profile individuals and folks in the fintech space and sports, media, entertainment. Captain Sullenberger came to us 5 years ago for the 10th anniversary, which was celebrated at the Charlotte Aviation Museum, which is now the Sullenberger Aviation Museum. And it occurred to me, we worked very closely with him. And I mean, we had everybody come down from Good Morning America to the Today Show to CNN. And I thought, it's really time for New York to commemorate that moment. And it is the 15th anniversary on January 15th, 2024. And it just seemed to me it was time for New York. That was the thinking. And when I asked his permission, he was very, very happy about that.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're not here, are you here as representing, I'm sorry, again, Hiltzik Strategies in a paid capacity, meaning that Captain Sullenberger or people associated with you have hired your strategy group to make this presentation, or are you doing this because of previous work and the relationship that you've had with him and you thought that he deserved this?
That's it. Yes.
Excellent. Okay, great. And you yourself, are you located in New York City or? You've
asked the magic question. I lived there my entire life from 21 to, I'm not going to tell you when, but 3 years ago, I got married and my husband and I are now in Rumson, New Jersey. So I consider myself a New Yorker though my whole life.
Got it, great. Well, I am from New Jersey, but I definitely just tell people I'm from New York. But, you know, I get it, it's hard to give up the New York identity. Yeah, no, exactly. Can I ask you about your methods for collecting signatures? You did meet the signature requirement, we took a look at that. But I am curious how you went about collecting signatures and who you
Yes.
collected.
So again, as a lifelong New Yorker, I know what it's like for someone to come with a petition in front of you. And so while it was, I spent 2 hours and a couple of my other team members spent 2 hours. And I went into the shops. I mentioned 3 of them, 4 of them. And I have to say, we were just embraced by everybody as soon as I said Sully. So it was very easy for me in my first 2 hours to collect 60 signatures like that. So we went individually into people. We went to the wonderful school that has like 5 different schools in the major campus. Every teacher was so extraordinary. As I said, we went into restaurant Divino, which was opening that night, and they, got everybody to sign. In fact, we went back to have dinner because we had a very long day. And then all the patrons on their first night signed as well. So it was a very different experience than I thought. It was very easy to collect the signatures. And as I said, we did hear everything from, well, wow, we thought we thought it happened. It's about time, to just, wow, I just saw the movie again. He's great. Tom Hanks, so it was a wonderful experience.
Great. That's not surprising, as we all are very familiar with Captain Sullenberger, and certainly, I think we're certainly inspired by what happened that day and his actions. Well, I have just one last question for you before I open up to the public. To see, and I don't know if you yourself have brought anyone with you or any supporters, but we'll see who's online. But my last question is just: do you happen to know if Captain Sullenberger himself has, beyond the day that almost, I guess, as you said, 10 years ago, was rescued and brought to the west side of Manhattan? Do you know if he himself has spent any significant amount of time living, working, residing, traveling to Hell's Kitchen beyond that day?
Well,
other ties to the community beyond landing the Hudson River.
I can tell you that he will be back in New York and absolutely will be in your neighborhood for the 15th. I would have to ask him personally if he's spent a lot of time. I can tell you on the 10th, we did spend time with a number of news crews because they wanted to retrace the steps of what happened that day. So yes, I can testify to that for sure.
Thank you. You are not under oath, but I do appreciate that. No, thank you for the answer. Thank you for the answer. Thank you for trying to collect your, go through your memories and try to recall where and when he's been here. And with that, if there are no other pressing questions from the committee, I'm going to see if there's any member of the public who would like to speak on the subject. And if so, Nellie, I'll have you lead this part and bring people over. So if you want to speak on this co-naming application, raise your hand as a participant, and Nellie will move you into the main room so that you're able to speak. Okay, I am not seeing any hands on this. So Linda, we're gonna now turn it to amongst ourselves and sort of talk about this and talk about the merits of your application, and then we'll take a vote. Okay. So I'll open up to you all first before I share my thoughts. Who has thoughts?
And I'll start. Listen, there's no question in my mind. He is a hero. Okay, throwing it out there, no question. And My only disconnect is the amount of time that the captain has spent in our area, particularly on those blocks. Listen, this is nothing to having to do with my opinion of him. I have a tremendous amount of respect. I just had a disconnect with putting the sign on the location and not in the park area or not in a more appropriate area where I think it would actually show more respect in a way towards the captain. So.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the Hudson River Park, I think that is a good idea. I think it's tricky. I understand the idea of being at 50th Street parallel to where the incident happened. If you look at what's at 50th Street, it's Pier 90, which is a cruise ship terminal pier, and no public access. It's the worst part of Hudson River Park, if you could even call it Hudson River Park. So could there be something at the pier next to the Intrepid, which is a public pier? The Intrepid is also an air and space museum that has airplanes on top of the aircraft carrier. You know, I could see a spot at the end of that public pier that had a plaque and some sort of while you're standing there, that's probably the best vantage point in Manhattan of where the landing happened. But I am also sympathetic that were it to be at 9th Avenue and 50th Street, that would feel very disconnected. Were it to be at 11th Avenue and 50th Street between 11th Avenue and the highway, I get that that's sort of the closest street towards where it happened. So I would be more favorable towards that spot. But it also is, it doesn't, other than the latitude, it doesn't feel very connected to the man. And also I'm sympathetic to David's point of it's typical to wait 2 years after someone's passed. So some things are feeling a little atypical. He's alive, he's not from New York, he hasn't spent time in the neighborhood. This didn't happen on 50th Street, it happened in the river. So but that's what's on my mind. But also to echo what Tina said, clearly an American hero who we all respect and admire.
Yeah, I think the guidelines we established a long time ago, we are very specific about the street, second naming being related to people who had lived and spent a very significant portion of their life in the neighborhood. So it was meant to be, honoring neighbors in a sense, which had exceptional contributions. And so this one, there are three requirements, and that requirement is not met there. Although we all would love to help in some way, right? And hence the discussion about the Hudson River, park, which I think would be really more appropriate. I think that I don't know that this proposal would pass with the full board, and legitimately so, because it doesn't fit the bill, essentially, irrelevant that we all think that the captain was just amazing.
Well, I would agree with other statements made. I would suggest maybe a compromise. I think just to put the name there, not everybody's going to recognize the name. I think something of a plaque, something like a store, like you see, like on Clement Clarkmore Park, we have a historical plaque that explains why this is called Clement Clarkmore Park. I think a plaque at a location would at least have, and he could have his name there. Personally, I don't think Hudson River Park is going to go for renaming. They're very tough on them. We can hardly get a plaque for somebody on the bench. So I don't think that's going to,
That's a common problem, by the way.
Sorry?
That seems to be a common problem.
Yeah, well,
My group was
they generally
that
don't.
too.
And I think the Intrepid wanted to do something a while back, and we turned it down. Didn't get that one. But I think something in a plaque would kind of like let people know what happened here, and give him a little respect.
Yeah, but it has to be on a private building.
Yeah. We don't have
You
the,
don't put a plaque on the street.
Can't put on.
No.
nor do we have the funds
That's
to.
Maybe we have to find. Maybe they can find a building that wants to.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
but I think
Okay.
I think we may want, one thing we could do is write a letter to the Hudson River Park
Mhm.
and to the Intrepid
Right.
and
See
say,
if they want.
and say, we really believe that this is where it belongs and where, most people would enjoy, statue or, maybe something bigger than just a street
Yeah,
name.
maybe Intrepid wants to include something in their programming.
Yeah.
Continuous.
That would be my.
I would agree with all that. I just think that we should not be the ones leading that charge. I think we would ask Linda to find, work with, reach out to Hudson River Park, reach out to the
And then
Intrepid.
we could.
And then we would be happy to write a letter in support of that and assist you in those efforts. But I do have to agree with the comments that have been made by my fellow committee members, just in terms of ties to the community, which are just so important when we talk about street co-naming, regardless of this momentous event that happened in the Hudson River. This is generally, as Christine said, something that's left to lift up our neighbors and to celebrate them and for the work and the prolonged work and sustained work that they have done directly in our community. And so for that reason, I don't think that co-naming makes sense, but as has been said here, right, we would love to support, or, we would be happy to support for you to come back. If you have a different idea of where Captain Sullenberger can be memorialized and be celebrated in either Hudson River Park or closer to the river, or if you're able to, petition the governor and rename the Hudson, happy to do that too. He's been dead for like 400 years. Let's give it Sullenberger. That's what I'm thinking. But I think I would unfortunately, at this time have to vote against your application.
Let's make the vote.
Could I make
Yeah.
one other suggestion?
Sure.
The other thing that comes to mind, just thinking of the waterfront, there's the pier next to Intrepid, which is public access pier. I think that'd be a beautiful spot for it. And then there's the horrible cruise ship terminal. Sorry, that's my opinion. And then to the north of that is Clinton Cove. And there's the new pier that is being renovated there. And that may take many years, but there's going to be new public access. And that's at 53rd, 52nd Street.
Yeah, that'd be
And
perfect.
that's getting very close to where this
That'd
happened.
be perfect.
And it's this beautiful, you can see the renderings. It's great. So,
Yeah. We could, maybe they could do more than a plaque, they could do a statue.
we could write a letter, at some point, we or the Parks Committee could write a letter to Related saying, let's do something for
Absolutely.
Sullenberger. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, that is a good point, actually. If you do come back, you might not be the right committee for that. It might actually be our Parks and Waterfront Committee. And they might be able to take this up. But with that, I think we are ready to take the votes. So I will say all those in favor.
So we need a motion.
Oh, we do need a motion. Sorry, yes, we do. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Somebody makes a motion. I think we heard that generally we would.
Motion that we
We do not support that, but.
do not support the co-naming, but we have tremendous respect for the individual and would love to write a letter in support of some other way to commemorate it.
Right.
Great.
Your second.
Second. All those in favor of that motion,
Okay.
the vote is unanimous. All those, I guess all those against, seeing none, all those present, not eligible.
I don't know, we have
All those
beer
abstaining. I don't
in
think we do have beer. Beer, did you vote? Would you like to vote?
What say you? Or is, yes.
All right, we might not be
Maybe.
very fair. Beer, maybe we'll be around for the next vote. But with that, I think we'll put this to rest for this evening. But thank you so much for taking the time to collect signatures and to come before us, and good luck.
I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate your enthusiasm, and I will haunt you and you'll help me do the other things. Thank you.
Great, of course, excellent.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good night. Okay, next on our agenda is the bus permits.
Durama.
Thank you, 1 second. Let me do this. Is the, Durama Inc. A bus, stop at 11th Avenue between 37th and 38th Street. So do we have a representative from Durama with us this evening?
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Ed Falkwitz on behalf of the Rama Tours. And I'm, first of all, very thankful for the committee, board meeting, for the invite. And I'm looking forward for you guys to hear our application.
Great. Would you like to just tell us about how
Sure.
you plan on the bus stop, what the bus is? Just give us an overview as if we have not read the material.
Not a problem. So we actually, the Rama Tours bought off a company called, it's an existing company. was called Experience the Ride. It's has several buses that drive around New York City, and it's a live theater in New York City. Our main location is actually 42nd and 8th, and we have a few other bus stops that we pick up passengers. So basically, let me describe a little bit. So it's a coach bus, has people sitting in there, and they go through the city. It's basically a view of the city, entertainment part of the city on a different level. It goes through, it shows, it connects with some of the buildings and some of the blocks when it drives through. It's been a company in this stop, actually, one of the stop that we're requesting is one of the stops that was an existing stop for Experience the Ride. It's not that we're requesting a new stop, it's been there and it's been used in the past. It's also one of the stops that is a very short stop, meaning to say, it's not a main stop, that it's on the route, actually, people get on and off, but it's less than a 5-minute stop, actually. It drives through, it's one of our routes that starts from 42nd and 8th, and it comes back to 42nd and 8th.
Okay, if I may, I'm sorry, just to clarify, so, or I'm gonna do a little bit of clarification to the committee, and it is a question though. So I don't know if people are familiar with the ride, but it is right, it's a tourist attraction where people, tourists can get on this bus, it takes them around the city, there are actors placed all over various locations in the city, and there's music blasted into the bus and an audio guide, or narration, the story is told for the tourists, and they're sitting looking out, facing outwards, and getting to see this live action take place in New York City in front of them. It's actually pretty cool. And certainly I've almost ran into like some of the ballerinas dancing in the middle of Columbus Circle. But so I am just a little bit confused. I'm sorry, because you say it's one of the shorter. So this is one of multiple stops along the route during the ride, or I'm just confused about exactly what, or this is the pickup and drop off location. Is that what this is?
Exactly. So it's actually, so we have several different rides. Most of our runs do not, go through 11th Avenue or 38th Street. This particular ride that we have 4 times a day actually drives through there, and we do stop to drop off passenger or to pick up passenger alongside that part.
That makes sense.
Right, because I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, it's Javits Center.
No, I know. It's across the street from Javits Center.
No, it is on the Javits.
Oh, it's on the Javits Center.
On the side of the Jefferson, that is correct.
Got it. Okay. I'm sorry. Can you just describe though exactly when you say this is one of many rides? This is one of many rides. So what is this particular ride?
So we have different rides. Most of our rides runs through 42nd Street, 57th Street. Go through Midtown Manhattan, goes a little more to the east, goes more to, not to that particular area. This particular ride, which is 4 times a day, goes from 42nd Street up to Columbus Circle, then to 7th Avenue, and then it comes around to 11th Avenue. When it comes around to 11th Avenue, it makes the left on 11th Avenue, exactly on the Javits. There are, 4 times a day, we have some people get on, or some people get off. Then it continues on, it stays there not even 5 minutes, it continues on, it goes back till the end of the ride, which takes about anytime from 60 minutes to 75 minutes, the entire ride, and it goes back to 42nd Street, and most of the people get back off in the starting location.
Okay, so the starting location is 42nd Street.
Right.
The people who are getting off, are the ones who are getting a little dizzy and need to get off shortly.
Not so much dizzy, but some people we do have actually connection that they, get off of that location. They do a partial ride, and some people just get on over there. Or it's been there, and that's why that's why we have it only 4 times a day. Most of us stop 42nd day is probably 18 to 20 times a day, depending on the day. And there's 3 buses that do this ride. This is only one single bus that drives through there, and it's single-handed people that get on and off for that to stop. It's just
my question
not out there.
I'm asking a question that are a little tongue in cheek, but I am trying to get at the substantive issue of are people actually using this stop? Meaning you actually will have people waiting in some sort of queue to get on the ride, and some people who want to get off at this location who are not getting on or off at your origination spot at 42nd Street. That is correct?
That is correct. That is correct. But on a very minimum, I would say at most we have at stop is 10 people getting on and off at most.
Okay. So it will be quick. I'm gonna open up to, if you're done with, your presentation, if that's okay, I'm gonna open up to committee members for questions. Christine?
So two questions. One is you are asking for 100 feet of for the bus stop, right? But you have only one bus coming through, right? So why not ask for 50 feet unless you have a second bus which is going to come and lay over?
Okay, perfect question. So here's the answers. When you asked us to fill out this application, I was actually thinking what to write over there. So the average, the length of the bus is 45 feet. So technically a bus to get into a stop and out of a stop, you would need 10, 50 feet in front of it, 10, 15 behind it. Do we need exactly 100 feet? No. If it's 75 feet, that's fine at all. It's not about the footage. It's just about, and it's a single bus. So there's no concern about a second bus coming there for layover. It's just the idea of fitting in a bus. In an average MTA bus stop, the way they figure average, and their bus is even shorter, is about 90 to 100 feet. So I average it out. But if it's 75 feet, it doesn't matter.
Okay, just because I'm concerned, you are at the same place as an MTA stop. This is not generally, we rather not have, visiting, but in this case, you have very few of them, so that's fine. But if there is a need to have the MTA bus stop come at the same time as you are, I just want to make sure we have enough space. So I would, say, hey, we have to have X for the MTA and X and Y for your bus, right?
I believe 50 feet for us and 50 feet for them is okay. Usually, so if you would have, let's say, something in front of the buses, something blocking the buses from either side, I would understand and say, listen, you have two buses, then you would have to give some extra footage for each bus. This is more or less most of the time an empty, getting in and out. It's very easy to get into the bus stop and get out of the bus stop. There's not a lot of blocking before or after. So even if there would be.
So I think if we ask for 60, that should be fine, right? 60 feet?
That's fine, as long as the bus can get in and out safely, that's fine.
Okay. And then the second thing is that your buses, are they new or, from a standpoint of idling and engine and consumption, what about it?
So it's pretty funny. I've been through a whole bunch of committee boards. Everyone asks this question, which is a very logical and very ideal question to ask. So our bus is actually 2,000 buses. 2010 buses. And we do enforce idling. So here's the good thing. And as you guys know, as in New York City now is very, very tough on buses, and rightfully so. 3 minute idling, otherwise you got a ticket, then we pay astronomical amount, and people go out there and chase us and take videos, which is a very good thing. The idea of us, that's what I'm saying, this stop is at max 5 minutes. You get over here, you deboard people, and you load on people. So there's not even a chance to idle that much. It wouldn't be a factor versus other stops that a bus originates for or goes back to its destination. So I wouldn't have a big concern. And as far as the bus, 2010 comes with, if you're familiar, with a DPF filter, and there is its fuel efficiency for idling. Okay,
all right. That's why.
Other questions from me?
Thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious to understand who might want to get off at the Javits Center. Is the idea that there's tourists in town for a convention who buy a ticket and it's convenient for them to start their journey on 11th Avenue?
That is absolutely correct. So it's mostly a person that attends the Javits Center and wants to get onto that ride. But then again, they're not getting. You guys understand? If you get off on 11th Avenue to the 8th Street, you kind of admit the ride. And same thing for getting on over there. So they would get half expense. That's why we have not such a big crowd over there. If it would have been an original stop, it would have been even preferred. But the previous company basically going along the same ride, the same idea that they had in the previous. It would have been even in my side as a business view would have been even better to start out there. But this is not what we requested because for now they're all starting at 42nd and 8th. So they wouldn't get a full experience. That's why we have that little amount of passengers. And that is 100% correct. They will be coming mostly from the Javits and going to the Javits.
So is it like a discount ticket for people who are experiencing half the ride, or it's just people?
I'm not 100% sure, but it's probably so.
Thank you.
That was my confusion too. Any other questions from the committee?
Again, can the general public get on that bus as well?
Anyone who pays the price for a ticket can get on, of course.
Okay.
Anybody who's
That's
paid.
like a show.
Yeah. Great.
Okay,
Have you seen them?
we have yeah.
My wife was the original cast member.
You guys are more than invited to come and watch the show. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I've done it. My wife was the original cast member of one of the hosts on the ride back in 2012, I think.
Yeah.
So actually,
2010.
yeah, let me just elaborate a little bit on the spot. So Experience the Ride had that business for a few years. I don't know how much, and they kind of was COVID and things got hard on them. We're existing bus company. We had bus companies before, run buses. I don't know if we got in over our head, but so we actually took over about a year ago. Started running it about 4 or 5 months ago. It's been a little bit climb. It's tough. Right now, in front of every community where we go, they ask us about crowd control. I said, I wish we were up to that problem now. We're not there yet, I wish. And especially for certain stops, like alongside the ride, along the way of the ride, I'm sorry, I wish it would be a busier stop. So people usually ask me, are you concerned about ticket agents, soliciting tickets? We don't have none of that. Our buses are pretty much set up before they get there. They load up and it's part of the show. So not something like a hop on, hop off. So most of these things wouldn't matter. And we don't sell tickets on the street. It's all pre-purchased or ordered online and all that.
We have a.
Yeah.
Is anybody in the?
Sorry, Greg. Yes. Does anyone in the public want to comment on this application? We have one hand raised. Matthew Robinson. Do you mind, Nelly? Do you mind moving Matthew over? Matthew, the floor is yours. I think he just came over.
Okay, so this is going to be at the Javits Center. Is that what I heard?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I was just over at the Javits Center I think it was last week. There was a special JNR computer, B&H convention there, and they were shuttling buses from the Javits Center to B&H. Now, so I'm not sure how often that kind of thing happens, where there's shuttle buses from the Javits Center to somewhere else. Definitely that happens, and that may be just once a year. But I would hate to think that the spot that's being used by them will be the spot that B&H would normally use, or someone else would use as a shuttle bus.
This is an MTA bus stop, so this is the stop that nobody else uses.
It's already an MTA bus stop, so I think I would be comfortable, knowing that it's not taking up additional.
It's not a loading zone.
Okay, so it's being shared already, so it's not. It's most likely not where B&H was actually using. Okay, then I'm fine with it.
Great.
I just wanted to say that there were some people that were shuttled from one area to another, and I didn't want that to be the spot that was compromised.
That makes sense. That makes sense. We want to keep that, area as free as possible for other uses and projections. But I think the space itself would be a shared space. Tina, you have a variance.
I'm fine.
I'm just concerned because it is a bus stop and it is used by our city buses.
I mean, I'm very concerned about that, but this is like 4 times a day for 5 minutes. So, I'm like, okay, and there was already an approved stop. So if we deny it, it happened last time when we did, DOT is going to tell us it was approved already. What are you talking about? So if they were going to do, 50 start and stop, then that would be a totally different discussion. Plus, the 11th Avenue bus is every 30 minutes.
That's what I was just trying to look up.
Yeah,
It's
it's pretty
30 it's every 30 minutes,
pretty
so
yeah.
I think we have a lot of, time/space here.
Okay.
Hopefully, one day it'll be more frequent and then.
Yes.
Yeah, one
we'll
day-
talk about it,
one day
yeah.
we'll think of-
One day when it's more frequent, you can come back and we may have a problem, but for now, I think this is fine.
Inga is on.
Sorry, we have another,
Inga.
Inga's got her, hi Inga. Now we can move over, Inga.
Hey, guys, sorry, I just wanted to mention that those buses typically are very fumey. They're usually older, really, really antiquated buses that have a lot of smoke and gas coming out of them. So I don't know what we can do to try to curb the pollution, but those buses in particular are quite old and polluting. That's all I have to say.
Well, the owner told us that they have an EPA filter. So, I don't know what else we can
Okay.
do.
They're actually,
That- Tell us about it.
yeah, sure. So they're actually 2010 buses. I don't know, I'm sorry to say, in respect, I don't know what you're saying about polluting gas. And this has a DPF filter, which is requirements above 2008. I don't know why, polluting wouldn't be an issue with this kind of buses. And the exhaust is rooftop exhausts, which is requirements for the new buses. Never heard a complaint about, fuming. And to be honest with you, we're looking for people in the entertainment business, in the show business. And if this would be like a bus that would give out fumes and gas, we would have pretty much no one on the bus. So.
Okay. I've been there when the NH buses come by, so that's all I have to say.
Which bus?
Thank you. The buses that transport people to and from B&H.
No, we're not.
These are different. They are different.
These are not these
Okay.
buses, this is different buses.
Yeah.
Okay, these are
Yeah.
better buses.
No, the B&H, yeah.
That's all. Thank
This is
you.
not, this is not a B&H shuttle bus.
100 years ago, right?
Thank you. Yeah, those are really antiquated. Okay, thanks.
No problem, thank you. And yes, and among other things, this is a company that does employ actors who are otherwise out of work or, waiting for the shop. And I do think it's kind of a nice opportunity for a lot of them. And with that, if there's no other members of the public, we have a motion to adopt. We have a second. The motion to adopt here would be a motion to approve the application, correct? Yeah. Do we have a second? We have a second. Second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Present not eligible or abstaining?
What is your?
Baron? And no Baron. Okay, we are moving on. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time.
Thank you again, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you all. Okay, now on to the fun stuff. Okay, let's take this all back now. So we're all moving on now to this letter that we drafted several months ago. For pedestrian for bike safety letter. For those of you who remember or who were here, we had a very, very long meeting where we heard a lot of testimony from those who were affected by bicycles, mopeds, electric vehicles on sidewalks, driving the wrong way, driving against regulations, and injuring people, scaring people, doing a lot worse than that. And we took it upon ourselves to listen to the community, listen to various stakeholders to come up with, well, we may not have all the ideas, but we can put in as many good ideas as we can into a letter that we can suggest to our electeds on how to start tackling this problem, which I think we all do agree is a problem. People are getting seriously injured. And so we wanted to put our best feet forward on some ideas. So we did draft a letter. It's in the Dropbox. I encourage everyone as we discuss this evening, to refresh yourselves with the proposals that we put in there. In the interim, because there was so much discussion and because there were so many ideas going around, we decided to wait and hold off on any votes until we had a draft letter that we could circulate and that we could more comment on it in more depth. So we are at that point now. But in the interim, we have received additional feedback from some additional community groups who have spoken to us. Some of whom will be on this evening and will speak to the committee as a whole. Others who have written to us, we're happy to summarize their ideas or feedback. But I will say, I think the goal of this evening should be twofold, or the goal of this discussion should be twofold. The first will be to, if there's any ideas that we want to add to the letter, or any ideas that we want to remove from the letter. And the second priority would be to actually include a few top items that we want to encourage the electeds to implement more quickly. So the two things are anything that we should want to add to the letter, anything we want to remove from the letter, and then anything that we think is of the most urgency that can be implemented, not anything that's, would take a long time. But if there's anything quick that we think can be implemented and would be relatively easy to implement, I think we want to highlight that and put that at the top of the letter. But the idea is to finalize the letter this evening so that we can get it to exec next week and vote on it by full board next month. So I think what we should do first is hear anyone who is here to speak on the letter first from the community, and then talk amongst ourselves. I think that's the way we should do it. I'm going to do my best to take notes, because there's going to be a lot, I imagine, and I'll try to recall. I'm going to let everyone online speak. If people can limit it to a few minutes, that would be ideal. And then I will, as we then discuss amongst ourselves, try to remind people of the ideas that have been expressed. So to make sure that everyone knows and feels that they've been heard. And I'm sure that those who are speaking will have great new ideas that we haven't thought of, or interesting criticisms that we haven't thought of. So, Christine, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just want to, no.
Okay, great. You know that. Okay, so with that, for those who I see already a bunch of hands up. And we do have one member of the public who is actually here with us in person. And I actually probably will start with you if you are ready for that, sir. So we have one person here who's in person, and then we'll turn it over to those who are online. So if you just don't mind introducing yourself and speaking up so that these microphones here can hear you. And
Yeah, if you want to come up.
or you can even come to the front.
Yeah.
You can. You can do whatever you want.
Evening, my name is Richard Marins. I'm speaking to you this evening as a representative of the Pedestrians for Bike Safety, which is a coalition of block associations in Clinton, Chelsea, and West 50s, along with members throughout the city. We're dedicated to improving safety conditions for pedestrians, bike, and moped riders in New York City. The committee has written a brilliant, well thought out document on how to deal with our current bike moped situation, CB4, which I'll refer to as the resolution. I'll also be referring to bikes and mopeds at times, just as bikes for brevity's sake. Some points I'd like to make. One, I'm wondering if you would consider putting a resolution together that summarized some of the points or the key points in the letter, because it's a great document, but it's not the battle cry that we might want to carry forward. Just a suggestion. I saw it done on CBA. I thought they did a good job. I'm sure we could do it better. Or you could do better. The biggest problem I see with the resolution is that it does not call for NYPD enforcement of current traffic laws regarding bikes and mopeds, at least to the extent that we believe is required. We believe that stronger enforcement is an important part of a multifaceted program dealing with bikes, including a substantial Vision Zero campaign to change our bike culture to make it more sensitive to pedestrians and bike riders around them, holding the apps, restaurants, and city bike responsible for their riders' violations, and reaching out to riders, both delivery and city bike, to try and decrease the level of illegal riding. However, right now we have mopeds in bike lanes, bikes on sidewalks, and riding against traffic that needs to be stopped.
Building more infrastructure without a program, including strong enforcement, simply lead to a larger scale, irresponsible and dangerous riding. Cargo bikes are a good example, heralded as a great green step that would help us all. In fact, they've become even more dangerous. Without enforcement, they're on sidewalks, they're riding the wrong way, and they're riding recklessly in the bike lanes. And this is just recent. I'll point to another example as I rode down from 48th Street. Pedicab almost crashed into me going the wrong way and taking up the entire bike lane. Few words were exchanged. We would also request that the committee include in their letter or resolution or both something to the effect of opposing the DOT regulations that were proposed regarding the four-wheel cargo bikes, which I think most of the people testifying were just appalled at. And Liz Kruger has written a really great letter on that I'll include in my more extensive written testimony outlining the problems there. We'd also appreciate seeing a call for elimination of all e-bikes and mopeds in Central Park. We would appreciate a section demanding that the legislation and statutes be clarified, allowing for no mopeds to be sold without registration and proof of license. We are very much opposed to the bi-directional, to the concept of bi-directional movements. People from handicapped individuals, elderly people, including myself, and others who are just convinced that this will not help us and will make our lives even more dangerous. I'd also request consideration and that you be aware of the issue of more corrals on our streets. I know that this is a DOT issue, but I think it's up to us and y'all to opine on this matter. We have clusters of bikes and riders assembling in various places, creating disturbances. And if you put in more corrals, I'm afraid that that is just going to encourage that and lead to a deterioration of our quality of life, especially on 9th Avenue. Let's see. I think that's about it. Finally, I cannot give testimony without calling out the Adams administration for their failure to address the bike situation to the detriment of CB4 residents. And I don't know how you can handle this in a politic way, but I'm not worried about that. I'm just telling you, their work in this matter is just atrocious. It has left us all hanging. I'll have a longer version of my testimony. I'll submit the documents. Thank you for your time, and I very much appreciate your work on CB4 and this committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the testimony. Before we move on to other people online, if I may just ask Christine quickly to just fill in the committee on the four-wheel cargo bike issue, just so we all know. I think that may come up a little bit more, and Christine has spent a lot of time on this.
Well, the city has proposed, the DOT has proposed a rule to allow different size of cargo bikes. And today they are limited to 36 inches. They have proposed to expand them to 48 inches. And they are also proposing that those cargo bikes be 4 wheels mini truck. So when you look at it, it looks like a mini truck. So they are all pedal assist. They are not, autonomous. And the final piece of this equation is that they are proposing that those cargo bike be parked, be able to park on the sidewalk. Which indeed has major implication, because in order to park on the sidewalk, you have to ride on the sidewalk, right? Which is illegal, so it's not ideal. They have also proposed that there would be parking for those cargo bikes, and which is good, you know, and loading zone, which is good. But so that's what is has been proposed. I have personally testified against, you know, especially against the bike parking on the bike riding on the sidewalk and the bike parking on the sidewalk. I didn't testify by anything else. I just testified about those reasons.
No.
So these are issues that are percolating right now. You know, in addition to everything else, let's put it this way.
And two quick follow-ups. One, sorry, would they would also be allowed to drive in the bike lanes? Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it. And two, I'm sorry, we're going to slow about this briefly. Where are they in the process of is the DOT is making a final recommendation?
Yeah.
Meaning, is this something that we want to take up as a separate letter, or is it something that we definitely?
Well, the testimony was supposed to be done before, you know, last week. So there was a deadline to the testimony before that, and our elected officials testified along those lines of, you know, we cannot have cargo bike riding and parking on the sidewalk. And so we had other Jordan testified and others. And I think all the other advocacy organization also said this is ridiculous, it shouldn't be on the sidewalk. So I think we have, there was
notice in common period, which is now closed,
right.
But I do think this would probably, we could put it in this letter as a standalone issue, and not, because it's sort of the time is sort of passed to make it a bigger issue.
So that's part of, you know, on one hand, it's illegal to bike on the sidewalk. On the other hand, they want to propose something which is going to increase the number of biking on the sidewalk with you know, equipment, which is pretty big. I mean, you know, 48 inch is big, not small. So, you know, we emerge all of that. There are some people that are working at DOT to try to figure what's going on that I will follow up with, but that's where we are.
Thank you.
This issue.
Thank you for clarifying, everyone. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because that was not something we had discussed last time.
And a lot of people, I mean, you know, there were hundreds of people listen to that hearing, and I don't know, 20, 30, 40 testify opposed to it. So this was a very big deal.
Okay, and with that, we're going to open up to those who are online and have their hands raised. Nelly, if you want to move over, you know, 2 or 3 at a time, and we'll hear from those online.
Okay. First, I'm going to bring 3 people over at a time, and we have Andy, Matt, and Ron.
Andy, I think you're up first.
Hi, it's Andy Hum. Shall I go ahead?
Yep.
I'm Andy Hum. I'm the treasurer of the London Terrace Tenants Association. I've submitted some written testimony, but let me just try to cut to the chase and summarize it. The bottom line is this is not going to work unless you insist that everyone stay in their lane. That includes pedestrians, regular bicyclists, and motorized vehicles. Anything with a motor on it does not belong in a bike lane. It belongs in the traffic. You know, when I first rode a bicycle, you know, here 30 years ago, I don't now, I rode in traffic. I mean, I wouldn't say it was ideal, but we managed and we didn't get killed. I mean, but we're now putting motorized vehicles in bike lanes is absolutely insane. You've already agreed, I think, that you can't have them in Central Park. I was there this weekend. It's almost impossible to cross the street without running to get across the street. They don't obey traffic laws. So if it's a motorized vehicle, it doesn't belong in a bike lane. And this idea of having 2-way bike lanes on 1-way streets is absolutely insane. I mean, I'm almost 70 years old myself. I live amongst people who are in their 90s. Trying to cross the street, you're making it almost impossible. You shouldn't have to look both ways on a one-way street. And then, of course, it's a matter of really stepped up enforcement. That's not up to you, that's up to the city. I heard Mayor Adams get confronted about this at his town meeting the other day, and he just sort of, oh, that's a very serious issue, but where's the plan? Where's the plan to do anything about it? So I'm pleading with you to treat motorized vehicles as things that belong in traffic, not in bike lanes. And of course, we want to get everybody off the sidewalk. That goes without saying. Also, Paris just banned those motorized scooters. New York could do the same. They're a menace. We don't have to put up with this, if we're going to have a safe city for everybody. And that, this means pedestrians have to watch ourselves as well, and everybody has to watch out for everybody else. But we can't, the current situation. And these battery-operated bicycles should be banned, period. If they want to deliver things through a motorcycle or whatever, but these batteries, of course, we know that they're a menace. 14 people have died in fires already. So ban them. I mean, why are we tolerating them? If that kind of an engine was in a car that could explode, it would not be tolerated. So we've got to really step this up quite a bit if we're going to really solve the problem. And of course, yes, we do have to appeal to the city, which has done nothing in order to make this work.
Great, thank you very much, Andy. And we do have your letter that we received this afternoon. I was going to summarize and share with you, but Andy did a very good job summarizing his letter. So thank you very much. And we will share it with the rest of the committee and make sure that it's in the record. Thank you for the testimony. Matt, is that his next? Ron, I'm sorry, Ron is next. Sorry.
Okay.
Ron, you with us?
Now, can you hear me?
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi.
Time is yours.
Thanks a lot for taking the time to address this issue. And I couldn't agree more with both Mr. Marins and Mr. Hum. Mr. Hum should run for office soon. And there are three issues in your well thought through letter that I think you should address. One is the bi-directional bike lane on one-way streets. That is insane, and it makes the matter even worse than it is now, because you have bi-directional riders in the bike lane going the wrong way. And one of the issues is you would have to put in infrastructure for lights going the wrong way as well if you wanted them to follow traffic laws. So you're talking about a major investment as well. The corrals where the delivery workers gather all over the city waiting for their next delivery is a big issue. It's a big issue for people who live in the buildings they gather in front of, because, they're talking, they're on their phones, they're laughing, they're having a good, and waiting for their next job. That's not the place for them to wait for their next delivery. These companies that run these delivery services should provide a place for them to wait for their next delivery, just like any person who has a job does. You're not waiting on the street hoping somebody's going to call you and having a party with your buddies. That has to stop. And more of those is going to make it even worse, because right now I live at Manhattan Plaza, and 9th Avenue is just chaos. I'm 66, and I'm telling you something, I feel like I'm going to be knocked down every minute of every day. The other one is I wish that someone would say, maybe Christine, you're the expert on these subjects, I think. What are the laws that exist now? What are the fines involved? What exactly are the laws? I know that you're not allowed to ride a bicycle on a sidewalk, and you're not allowed to ride a scooter on a sidewalk. If you're under 10 years old, you can ride your scooter on the sidewalk, but no one else. And what are the fines involved? What are the penalties? What about riding the wrong way in a bike lane? That's bike lanes are relatively new. Are there good laws about it? Can someone address that for me? And I think those ordinances or laws should be incorporated in the letter to show what's not being enforced. And again, the whole problem has nothing to do with building more bike lanes or if you can't pedal it, it shouldn't be on the streets of New York City. It just shouldn't. If you want to deliver something, you do it the way we did it when we were kids. You got on your bicycle and you pedaled. These batteries are dangerous. They're going too fast. They're going faster than cars on 9th Avenue, breezing through these intersections, which are full of people 24/7. So if somebody could tell us about the laws that exist, it would be a help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron, and we will try to talk about that when we talk in our committee discussion. Thanks for the comments, Ron. Matt?
Yes, hi. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, everyone. Yeah, I can read it. I'll start there with the police presence and the current laws. By the way, I'm a biker for commuting purposes. New Yorker, born and raised, been here a long time in this community in Hell's Kitchen. So I'm for the current bike lanes, but not the current regulations. And obviously for nothing that's been going on as far as holding people accountable for what is taking place. So the police presence and the laws that are in place, they have to be enforced some way or another. And I agree adding them to the letter that you drafted. I was able to read it just before the meeting, which was good. So that would be really important, because the problem with the lackadaisical attitude that's been, I feel, getting worse with police and deterring people from doing bikers and e-bikers and anybody from going the wrong way to speed regulations, the lack of enforcement and turning the other way. I mean, just on 9th Avenue yesterday, 2 cops were sitting, one was outside the vehicle, one was sitting inside, and a moped going the wrong way, 20, 25 miles an hour, zoomed right past them. Not even a batted eye. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is there's getting some sort of enforcement as far as the laws, I feel will make a lot of money for the city. And there has to be a way to do it, whether it's beat cops, police, bike cops, whatever it can be. And then it could be like an alert. You could send out like a mass alert campaign saying this is going to happen, some sort of local media blurb that would say, we're going to start enforcing the laws. The 2 lanes, go to that too. I've written on Crescent Street in Queens. If you go over the bridge and you go down to Crescent Street in Queens, they got the 2 lanes there. And I have to be in agreement with everybody here that the 2 lanes is a bad idea. I don't think it should be on at least this draft. Enforcing I look both ways before crossing the street, before crossing bike lanes, just because I know what to do. I try to tell anybody that's visiting, any family members, any elderly people that are with me, that they have to look both ways, always looking for bikes, because you never know. Having, let's say, 9th Avenue or 8th Avenue, having cars going one direction and bikes going multiple directions, you're not going to be able to teach yourself to look that way, and you're not going to be able to cross the street properly. So I feel it's very dangerous for that. I've experienced the problem on Crescent Street just being a pedestrian and a biker. So I hope that gets relooked at for sure. And lastly, just the speed deterrence, because the cameras, I think on there in the list you wrote out cameras being in trying to enforce the rules. There's, with the lack of registrations for anything, I actually was hit by an e-bike 3 weeks ago, going pretty fast. I luckily was hit. I was rear-ended and I flew. I ripped my pants, bad bone bruises on my knees. And that was right on 42nd Street and 8th Avenue. The guy was going the wrong direction. I looked both ways. He came out of the bike lane into the pedestrian walkway area that, I guess where part of the corralling bikes would be. So that experience alone, I went to the cops, they had cameras there, but what are they going to do? There's no task force. There's nothing to implement what do they get? Like, even if they catch this kid. So I'm trying to say, if cameras are the solution, it's not ready yet, because you can register, maybe the city bikes, which is what hit me, is registered. Maybe that would be looked into if somehow the camera caught the registration. But without any of that in place currently, I think the only way to do speed, regulate speed, would be the cops actually doing a job to stop them. And also, I have a suggestion that is not in this, would be, the painted speed bumps that when cars go over, it goes the thuds. At least something like that could slow an e-bike down from 20 to, let's say, hopefully below 15. Because if I got hit in any other way, I would have broke my leg. Like, I got really lucky. I didn't hit my head. And the speed deterring, some sort of action to deter speed would be, it would actually help also. A lot of people did disobey the law no matter what, especially in this interim period. Like, even try to enforce things, cops are not around, I'm going to break the law, right? So at least if you have on the corners, I taken too much time.
A little, yeah, we just have a lot of speakers, but all these points
All
are
right.
very well taken.
Anyway,
Thank you.
inverted speed bumps and some sort of speed deterrent bumps would work. If you could add that.
Of course, thank you for the contribution.
Thanks.
We're glad that you're okay from that incident a few weeks ago. So thank you very much. I see Miriam's next, or Miriam.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
And I have a couple of comments on the letter. One of them is a bit technical on the petition that's being circulated. On page 2, I contacted Ellen Sandals, who's been the facilitator of that, and she asked, please ask them to correct, as of 9/14, there were 5,645 signees to the petition. If you need me to send her statistics to you, I can. I have them. I can do that later. But she said, please, that's a little different than what was quoted as 1,100. That's quite a bit more people have been signing. And she says she posts it every few days, and that last few days over 100 people also signed it. So just as a technicality, the numbers are going up as the petition circulates. Another issue specific about the crash data. I have the DOT bicycles and pedestrian data from 2022. And it has 313 pedestrians are injured in that year. What I'm wondering about is even the word injury, because there's such a range of people who are in rehab, people who have broken their hips, people who have had skull fractures, who've been hospitalized. Is there any way that the data can be coded with some kind of inkling of the severity of the injuries? I have heard so many times many bicyclists testifying and minimizing, people just get knocked over, it's nothing. These are not SUVs, they're not the bad guys, the cars. And I think just having that category of injuries obscures the range and severity. And as I think I mentioned some time ago, when I had back surgery, my physical therapist saying he sees people in rehab, pedestrians who've been hit by bikes. If you're in rehab, it's a serious injury. So is there any way we can code them differently to communicate the severity of some of the things that are actually happening? Maybe as it's reported.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you for the suggestions.
Another, I'll make this very quick. The licensing, right? Right now, there are two electeds, or three electeds, and there are two proposals for licensing. One, Brad Holman Siegel and Tony Simone in the Assembly and the Senate, and another one in City Council with Bob Holden. Has any of that been looked into? Because I found the wording of the licensing in the letter vague, and I think a lot of people are concerned about the how we get accountability, and one way is through licensing. Just this last few days, an elderly woman in Chinatown was killed by somebody on a city bike, who apparently, and that's been in the papers the last few days and covered in some detail by Village Sun. Is there any way that you can refer to the some of the suggestions in these bills or others? Because I found the wording in the letter over 18 miles, licensing, I found that very vague. And of course, these are electric bikes. People do get hurt by regular bikes too. But I think this is the first step. And I don't think that would go, I don't think it would get passed now at this stage.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I think we have to move on to the next guest here, but appreciate it, and we've taken that all down. Thank you, Miriam. Can we move on to Ms. Spears? Oh, well, I see.
Hi.
Yeah. Oh, hi, go ahead.
Hi, I'm on.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Elka Fears, president of the West 47th 48th Streets Block Association. First of all, great job, all you guys. All that work you put against that letter is terrific. We support the whole block association, Richard Marin's comments that he suggested earlier. So, and we thank you for supporting the pedestrian safety initiatives. This pedestrian safety and bike safety is an issue that comes up almost every month at our block meetings. I'm going to make this really short. So we would support more enforcement of bike traffic laws by the NYPD. Maybe a task force of some sort. Certainly understand cars can't stop and follow a bike. Doesn't make sense. We're especially concerned about mopeds, e-bikes, scooters, because they somehow disregard traffic rules. They don't care about pedestrians crossing streets, as you've heard now a lot. We support the concerns that are put forth by the Pedestrian for Bike Safety Coalition. And again, I just, thank you for this, for taking this up, because it's a very important issue, and it's a safety issue. So thank you for listening, addressing our concerns. That's it. I'm out.
Thank you so much. Thank you for, everyone here is reminding us of the urgency of the issue, so that is very helpful. Thank you. Now I think we have Michael next. Hi, Michael.
Hi, thank you for your time, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. It's one of my favorite community groups. I think that we are all so creative and passionate about the health and safety of our city. I want to just start with, first, I am a human. Second, I am a pedestrian. Third, I am a cyclist. And last, I am a driver. It is the 21st century. I think it's time, and I firmly believe in my community and those in charge of this meeting that we can come up with more creative solutions than calling for more policing. A task force equals more money, and I'm not okay with spending more of my tax dollars on more policing. I think we can come up with more creative solutions to address pedestrian safety. Police are rarely and mostly never the answer. Pedestrian safety is equal to road diets and enhancements of micromobility. If we're talking about we can't learn to look both ways to cross the street, and we're against dual lane bike lanes, we have bigger problems than pedestrian safety. If we're talking about cracking down or enforcing laws of cyclists riding the wrong way on a bike lane, then we can talk about accountability on the pedestrian side as well. Why don't we ticket jaywalking? If we get to that point where we're ticketing folks who are trying to make a living, who are trying to get to work, school, to their friend's house, you know, I think these are really antiquated solutions that don't provide safety for our community. In terms of the unfortunate death of the pedestrian from the city bike, we have to look at statistics. And statistically, it is few and far in between compared to the vehicle fatalities, traffic violence caused by vehicles. So with that said, I think that our emphasis on the enforcement mechanisms need to be relooked at. And I think that we can come up with more creative solutions to educate and protect our pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Who was next? I think Inga's next. Hi, Inga.
Hello. It's me again. Okay, I just want to reiterate what Andy Hum said. He spoke on behalf of the entire Tenants Association for London Terrace. Andy, I agree with everything he said, and bikes do not belong on sidewalks. Motorized bikes do not belong in bike lanes. They belong with the motorized vehicles. They're a motorized vehicle, albeit smaller. I think the two-way bike lanes are a bad idea. 9th Avenue, even down here in Chelsea on 23rd Street, I go to and from work every day. I walk. I'm often almost hit by a car, or I mean a bike in the bike lane that's ignoring their light. They have their own lights. They ignore them, or they'll weave out of their lane and come back into their lane. The only thing we can do is enforcement. And honestly, the only way I see it is if someone actually stands there and catches them. The cops aren't going to get out of their cars to catch them. We've all seen it happen in front of us. The cops don't get out of their cars. The traffic police that go down the street walking and giving tickets to cars that are illegally parked is sort of what we need for bike lanes. We need people, we need cops on the streets, on the bike lanes, on the corners, on the sidewalks. There are so many elderly people that aren't as quick as I am. I can jump out of the way. One day I may get arrested for knocking someone off their bike when they do it. Just depends on the day, but I can see that happening. We really need to, they're not following the rules. Your light is green, you walk, but you have to stop and make sure the bike isn't illegally coming through. And the motorized bikes on the sidewalks are ridiculous. And they should not be in the bike lanes. And I'm just going to go on and on, so I'll stop here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Next, we have, I think, just a few more. Oh no, Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. Thank you, everyone, for your service. I'm quickly going to say I'm a resident of Hell's Kitchen for 26 years, born and bred in Queens. I am on the younger side of from those speaking today. I'm in my early 50s. I'm an active person. I walk really fast. And the issue with the bicycles and all of these wheeled vehicles are still overwhelming for me. So this is not just an issue for the elderly. This is an issue for all pedestrians. And I agree with most of what everyone is saying. I am going to focus on the corrals. The corrals are problematic because they are used as public parks. If you just take a walk on 8th between 44 and 45 or 45 and 46, There are people having lunch there. Girlfriends, wives, kids are joining them. They bring out their brown bags. They're all eating. There's a kid today. I saw a kid about 7 years old learning to ride his bike in the corral area. And a couple of weeks ago, I saw a 3-year-old playing with a big bouncy ball in this area. So the corrals are becoming meeting places, and they're not being used the way they're supposed to be used. The delivery companies need to be more responsible. I agree with all motorized vehicles being licensed. And the delivery companies should absolutely be 100% responsible for this new kind of issue that we're dealing with. It's great for the city. It's great that we have delivery, speedy delivery, but it needs to be monitored. NYPD is not going to do it. We all know that. We all know NYPD is not going to do this. So it's really up to the people responsible for the increase in these motorized bikes to regulate. And we have to start charging them. We have to start taxing them. We have to start fining them, just like we're doing with the cannabis shops that are popping up so rapidly. So with that, I will end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amber. No, we have one or two more. I see Matthew and I see Carrie, but I think I don't know who's first, but Carrie, you're unmuted already, so go ahead, Carrie.
Hi, thank you. Thank you everyone for the opportunity, and thank you for this great meeting. I am in the street. I'm sorry, I'm going to be missing the first act of a Broadway play. This is how passionate I feel about this topic. I am on the steering committee of the Electronic Vehicle Safety Alliance. We are a sister group with Richard Marin's group, PBS. We proudly associate with them for safety for pedestrians, cyclists, and everyone in the city. Just a couple things to add to just maybe bring some light to the subject for people that were asking questions. Our group, first of all, is 400 members strong. We have a town hall next Wednesday at 6:30. You can go to the send us an email. We'll give you more information, nycfsa@outlook.com. There is a bill, as someone had said, Bob Holden's bill. There are 28 signatures on that bill that will be going to city council. If we get to 34, then it is more mandated to pass. That is for licensing, registration, and plates. There's also other things included in the bill. Is seeking, along with Hoylman, but I don't know if Hoylman's bill is seeking this accountability for the delivery apps, insurance, and more progress toward accountability. I'm agreeing with everything everyone says. I am a cyclist. I'm an avid cyclist, and I can't ride up 8th Avenue safely anymore. I can't ride in the bike lane without being, I'd say, 6 or 7 times from, say, 54th to 57. 6 or 7 times from a motorcycle moped nearly hitting me every time I ride to an electronic bike. I agree with the corral problem. I've been working with Botcher's office in the Department of Sanitation to get grocery carts removed from the corral, the bike corrals. It's just turning into a disaster. So I know that there's many groups that want wider streets and wider bike lanes, which are not going to solve a lot of the transportation problems. They are actually going to bring more congestion of people and unwanted things into our city streets that, frankly, in the theater district here, make the area look horrible. It's not a good look. It's not a good look for commerce. And tourists are not really happy about it, I'll tell you, because it is dangerous. We are working on reporting as well. There are a few assemblymen working on changing the way that the police reports are made and updating transportation statistics so that they are accurate. What needs to be done there, and I'll close on this, what needs to be done there is on police reports, it cannot just be a motor vehicle crash. It has to be an e-vehicle crash. It has to be something related to an e-vehicle. And then, of course, the reporting has to go through, and people have to be allowed to make the report a few days after the accident, because like I was at the end of May, carted off to the emergency room when I was struck by an e-bike in the park who was illegally riding in the pedestrian lane, passing in the crosswalk, totally illegal. And let me tell you, that hit is bad. I still have injuries. I've been in physical therapy all summer. You don't want to be hit by a 65 to 75 pound e-bike, A, worrying if it's going to explode, and B, at the speed at which it can travel. The last thing I will say, the MTA, please, everyone support the MTA getting these e-bikes off the buses and subways, because it is bound to happen. One will explode at some point, and then we are really, really up, you know what's crick. So thank you again for the opportunity. Christine Bertet, thank you for your support on the DOT meeting last week. That can't happen, those cargo bites. And Senator Kruger and Ramos have also spoke out and written to Adonis Rodriguez saying they do not have the jurisdiction to pass that kind of law. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Karen. Enjoy the second act.
I missed the first act, but it meant a lot to contribute. So anyway, I'll catch the second act of the play. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Be safe. Thank you.
Matthew, I think we're closing out with you.
Okay, a couple of things. If everyone has been to Grand Central and you're on an escalator, there's escalator etiquette, where if you're going to go slow, you're on one side, and those that want to whip down are on the other side. You can do the same thing also with the bike lanes. If you're closest to the curb, you should be going slow. If you're going fast or faster, you should be away from the curb. The other thing about the whole bike lane is it violates ADA safety. But I'll go into that at a different day. In addition to it, if you work, some of these bikers are also foreigners, they're migrants. What I would, if there's any way that NYCHA teenagers or whatever could be given a priority to work at some of these jobs, it will get them sort of off the streets in one way, and on the streets in another way. I agree with everyone else in terms of the speed. Also, the speed should be regulated. In addition to it, if you're a marathon runner, from what I understand with the jerseys, one, the sign that you have on your chest or on your back boldly says who you are, whatever that, ADD, GT, whatever. So that it's large enough to be photographed. In addition to it, from what I understand, there's a chip embedded in something where you can actually track where the runners are at any given point on the 26-mile run. If that's the case, then there should be no reason why some of these bike messengers that do Grubhub and stuff like that could have their chip embedded. You would, one, know that they're going in the wrong direction. You would also know the concentration of bikers in one particular area or another. If it's so there'd be ways that you could track them. In addition to it, whatever they wear and stuff like that, or any sort of identification, should be thought in terms of winter, summer, night, and day. Each case is you want to have reflective surfaces at night, which you don't need during the day. And so there's some other issues like that I just think that are important. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, man. Thank you. Okay, so I believe that closes out our public session on this topic. Seeing no other hands. So obviously there's a lot to discuss here, and don't go.
In case we have to ask.
Yeah, we might. So the way I think would make the most sense to have this conversation, at least in my head, that would be, I think the simplest way from easiest to most difficult would be to, if we're agreeing to cut anything, and then going to what we might want to add. The two things I see potential discussion for cutting are the bidirectional bike lane, and I'm going to put it in the cutting category, although I think it'll be more about reshaping, will be the enforcement section, which is a difficult conversation. Well, not cutting, I meant more shaping, more shaping the enforcement section.
Corrals.
Oh, and corrals, thank you, and corrals, right, sorry, thank you. So
These two are.
and sorry, cutting is I do not mean cutting. Thank you for the credit, sorry. But I do mean what is currently in the letter, and we can talk about and discuss, rather than things that are just not in the letter at all, and we talk about stuff. So that's how I'm starting. Sorry, I did not mean to scare anyone in line, I did not mean to cut it. So I think the easiest one actually would be the bi-directional bike lanes. I actually am in agreement with everyone who spoke on that. I think it does make sense not to include that in the letter, for all the reasons discussed. If anyone feels strongly and disagrees, then please speak up, but otherwise, yeah, go.
I don't feel super strongly that needs to be in this letter, but I think I've ridden on Crescent Street in Astoria quite a bit. It's a two-way bike lane. I find it to be a very convenient artery in Astoria. It does take a little bit of education to understand the traffic lights. Broadway has bi-directional bike lanes now, I think in the 20s, maybe the 30s. They are a little confusing, but I think we have these delivery workers, and if you guys read this New York Times article, they're using like borrowed DoorDash accounts and paying commissions and paying fees to DoorDash, and they're making no money. And that's why they're having to speed, and that's why they're speeding. That's why they're going the wrong way on the super sidewalk. So the behavior, it's like a desire path in a park. You see where people are cutting through to get from one place to another. Maybe you should build a path there. People are going north on 9th Avenue in the super sidewalk already, and they're probably going to keep doing that as long as we're in this situation where we have desperate people who are trying to eke out a living in the only job they can get because they're not here, they don't have right to work yet. So I think a bi-directional lane could be a solution. It would take some getting used to. People would have to get used to looking both ways, these traffic lights, but I'm not against it. I'm not saying I'm against taking it out of the letter, but I just want to voice my support that it could be a solution.
I agree with Charles 100%. I'm in favor of the bi-directional like bike lanes. However, for the sake of this letter and this thing, I think we should keep it out. We'll address it at another time.
Agreed.
That's fair.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I also agree with that. So, is there, assuming for now, and we know I will summarize all the changes, but assuming for now, we are agreeing to cut the two like.
And as it relates to this letter, that's just a one brief mention.
That is the simplest edit we can do. That's just coming out. Okay, so now we should talk about enforcement. Or the corrals, thank you. The next, well, potentially, I mean,
Well,
thoughts on corrals, go ahead, proceed.
I don't buy the, okay, I should say something else. I'm very much in favor of the corrals because I have seen it work, which is once you put the corrals out there, the people are not on the sidewalk. And if the biggest concern we have out there is that people are riding on the sidewalk, the biggest solution is putting the corrals out. And what I heard about the corrals were that, you know, people don't like that. I mean, that there is agglomeration of people here. And we have agglomeration of people even if we don't have corrals. And they are agglomerating in the wrong place. So to me, having groups of people, even if they have their kids with their balloons, I'm happy with that. I mean, personally, I think if they have, you know, a life, this is okay. And they are going to do it anyway. But they are also going to ride on the sidewalk. So in 2010, when we had the first bike lanes, that's the first thing we did is we put the corrals out there in the floating lane. And immediately we stopped riding on the sidewalk. So we have seen it work, you know. So I think on one hand, we have the solution for a problem which is brought to us. And then we have people which are opposed to that solution because, you know, the behavior in the corral is not absolutely perfect with white gloves. And I'm saying we have to choose our problem and our solutions. And if the problem is riding on the sidewalk, corral is definitely a very important solution. So I am very much in favor of the corral.
I agree with Christina 100%. And because the corral are definitely gonna help the solution. We look at, we see the light beyond the tunnel. And like, nothing in life is perfect, but it's certainly like it's gonna reduce dramatically the cyclists on the sidewalks. And that's a major problem, is that they're on the sidewalk. And nothing's gonna be 100%.
And also the more corrals we have, the less big agglomeration we're going to have. So if we had a corral on, every 1 block or every 2 blocks, well, you would have 3 or 4 people there. You wouldn't have, like we have today, 20 or 25. So by spreading the space, I think you have less of a concern about people agglomerating, but then you're just people, so if they agglomerate around a corral, this is fine with me.
I agree with both Christina and David. I strongly support the corrals for a number of reasons. One, I think they're an excellent tool for daylighting. If we could put them, I would love to see them at every intersection, every side street on 9th Avenue, so that pedestrians who are crossing the street can see if a car's coming, or can see if a moped's coming, or see if the bike's coming. So they're tremendous daylighting tools. When the new pedestrian islands on 8th were built, there was one on 55th and 8th, and for the first 6 months, there was a police van parked on it. And then we put the corrals, and now there's no police van, and now you can see if there's cars turning. So the daylighting is really important. Also, cyclists need a place to park, and they're going to park somewhere. And if they're not going to park in a corral in the floating parking lane or in a newly created zone, they're going to park on a street sign. And a street sign is on the sidewalk usually. So we're going to have more bikes parked on the sidewalk, more cluttered sidewalks. So I think that's antithetical to our goals here. And then just to speak about the situation with the people hanging out there, I mean, I think that's completely separate from this letter. Like noise complaints about asylum seekers who their entire family shares one hotel room and they want to be outside and bounce a ball and teach their kid how to ride a bike. That's a different conversation. If we have a problem with the noise that they're making, that's a different conversation. But the fact is, at 8th Avenue and 44th Street, there are 1,000 hotel rooms filled with migrants. And I don't know how many people are in each room, but I'm sure it's more than when my family goes to a hotel. And so that area, that super sidewalk on 8th and 44th has become their yard. And that was not the intent when the sidewalk was built, but I think we have to have some empathy for they have nowhere to go, and better there than on the regular sidewalk. And
if it wasn't there, they would be somewhere.
They have
be in the
to
street,
go somewhere.
they're there.
Yeah.
So that's
I mean, just simply put, there's no evidence that it's gonna make any difference if we move corrals. It's all speculation, so.
And I would actually argue more corrals would be less, people that are spread out actually among the various corrals, and if anything, so.
And if we had the corrals like Christina's requesting in this letter, in the floating lane along 9th, where parking is, that would take them away from the super sidewalk, further away from the sidewalk, and also provides more protection for the cyclists, because a lot of time, or the walk, like I walk on the super sidewalk with my young children every morning on the way to school, and there's no cars there in the morning because it's commercial parking and there's nobody has commercial business at 8 a.m. So I don't feel very protected. The car could just swerve right over. So the corrals would provide something.
Yeah. Okay. So is anyone, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about the corrals.
Yeah.
I always thought that the corrals that I've seen on my family were in sections that were lined, not actually in the parking.
Say that again.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know this, you have the bike lane, you have a section where it's lined out, and then you have the parking lane.
Yeah.
Even like the buffer zone.
They are in the parking lane, not in the buffer zone.
They're always in the parking lane?
Yes, always. Always.
Well, on 8th and sometimes they're in the super sidewalk, like an 8th.
No, but he's talking about the buffer lane, next to the bike lane. They are not there.
Are they the super sidewalk?
No.
No.
Oh, yeah.
I sort of remember.
No, we did it on purpose, because.
I sort of remember like 9th Avenue, 38th, 39th Street.
No, it was in the parking lane. Yeah.
Maybe in the truckle.
No, there was a long time ago. Okay, so
yeah.
you keep this one?
Well, is there anyone here who strongly disagrees with keeping this one?
I would go with Charles as an example about putting them on the side streets.
No, we
If I
talked about putting
For
them
daylight.
For daylight.
daylighting.
Yeah.
Well, we can add
That daylighting may be mentioned in the letter.
It is,
but-
exactly.
Yeah, if
I
not,
I would rather see on
Do we,
on the corners rather than in the.
since we're on this, would we all agree actually of making this, because this one is a relatively quick compared to other things that we are suggesting in the letter, one of potentially easier things to implement, seeing it as something that the city does, they put in
Yeah.
corrals. How do we feel about emphasizing this as one of the first solutions? Does anyone feel?
I mean, after listening to the speakers, it seems like everybody prioritizes enforcement.
No, but that would be part of the three. That may not be the first.
Yes, sorry, we're thinking, not saying that we're thinking of highlighting 2 or 3 ideas
Not just
as
one.
things that should be implemented quickly.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that we include this in that bucket.
Okay,
Okay. So that is that. Now we'll move on to enforcement. So I think before we just say, enforcement, I still ask them, I hope everyone's taking the time to refresh themselves on the letter. And so when we talk about how we describe enforcement in the letter, please remember the context of all the other suggestions that we make about education and
but also,
holding acts accountable and the like.
but also in the letter, and I think it doesn't emerge because it's in different places. We're talking about enforced in about 5 or 6 different places.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
Maybe we
one of
can
the
condense it
things
into
that
one.
we should all bring it into one place, because we
Yeah.
do say enforce this, enforce that, enforce current laws.
Yeah.
Enforce, so we said all of that, but it's all spread around, so maybe we need to bring all that stuff, regroup.
Enforcement is great when it works in a positive way. Unfortunately, what has happened is when different community boards, different groups have gone to the local precincts and said, enforce. What they do is they start ticketing 83-year-old people passing red lights at 5 in the morning when there's nobody out there. They're not enforcing with what the people who spoke today,
Concern.
what were concerned about, legitimate concerns about people going the wrong way with a lot of people and going on the sidewalks. They're not doing it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're doing it at 5 in the morning. When it's totally ineffective, it's almost like sadistic. So I might be beyond this committee and beyond us, but how we can crack that nut, because when we say enforcement, it's gonna come out in a bad way, it's gonna have a bad, it's bad blowback. So how do we, I don't know, maybe to be honest, but how do we, because everyone, most of the majority of the people who spoke, our constituents, were saying enforcement. And I would agree with them, but it's just not implemented the way they wanted to envision it. So, and that's a problem, and that's something that we have to consider.
You get on the bus, right? Every once in a while, a bunch of transit authority comes on and checks your ticket. So I would assume, well, I think most people who used to get on the bus and not pay, maybe they're paying now. We need to have at least some sort of a roving or, occasionally have either cover, undercover, or at least at certain locations, every once in a while, moving around and grabbing someone who's on the motorbike, something. So I think instead of just saying we need more enforcement, I think we need to suggest something from the community, at least, here's what we think you should do, look into it, and come up with a better solution, rather than just say we need more enforcement,
It's interesting, there has been a conversation with the other, advocacy group. And one of the suggestions that came up by the advocacy group, and one suggestion that came up was the following, was to put enforcement at certain critical space, right, on foot, right? And have them give warnings for that 3 or 6 months, 3 months. So people are there, they see somebody doing the wrong thing, they stop them, they give a warning. That's for 3 months.
The register.
No, you don't have to register. You just give them a warning, and then at the end of the 3 months, the message is, hey, now we're doing it for real. So you had 3 months of coming through, of seeing is it being stopped or not stopped or whatever. So nobody's surprised, nobody is, caught unadvised. And at the end of the 3 months, finally, you start to give tickets, right? And then we can have the list of things for which people can give tickets, but I think you're making a good point. You don't want to give tickets to somebody at 5 o'clock in the morning, which nobody cares about, right? And maybe you have a supervision of the public, reporting, which says, what are they doing? So you can look at whether they are doing the right thing, or you're just doing, just to accumulate numbers. So that's something which some people have discussed when they talk about trying to do the enforcement issue. And I think everybody is in favor of the moped, illegal, shouldn't be in the bike lane, and nobody should be on the sidewalk, right? So everybody's clear on that, but you could still do the 3 months warning period where people stop you, give you a ticket, a fake ticket, and say, hey, next time it's going to be a real one, right?
What if we have a list of specific locations, maybe times of day where there should be enforcement, like this intersection on 9th Ave from whatever, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And so, and then also a list maybe of, here are the top 3 things that we actually want people ticketed for, which I think it touched on already in the letter, but just being very explicit, these locations, these times of day. And
I think the locations that we should probably, suggest that the police sit down with their community, right? We have 4 precincts. So they each should sit down with their community and solicit from them which intersection should go, because everybody is in their side of the community. I'm sure Richard would have 5 intersections and somebody at 42nd Street is going to have 4 intersections, so maybe we would recommend that. And we can say which of the things should be really enforced.
Do you think they're actually going to do that? As opposed to if you give them a list, then we can say okay, here are the 5. Are there actually police at those 5?
They would have to say that they would have to create a special.
Or is it
It would have to be
just something tactically, I don't know.
Generally doesn't like people telling them.
Okay.
As soon as you tell them what to do, this is you don't need to shut up, I'm going to do it a different way. So.
The 10th district already does that. They have spots that they pick out every once in a while, they move around a little bit different.
Right.
They always do that.
Charlie, I also think this would be a good time, if you don't mind, to share because I think they were in this section, but they were wrong. Well, just to speak on the article and that Charlie passed around and talk about how migrants fit into this story.
Yeah, I mean, just one thing that I think, one opportunity for enforcement is point of sale. We just on 10th Avenue and I think 45th or so, there's a new Fly e-bike store. The term e-bike drives me crazy because I own 2 e-bikes that I take my kids to school and all over the city with. That's a pedal assist with pedals and looks like a bike, but this is a moped store. It's called Fly e-bike, but it's a moped store. And I think at least one person who spoke today mentioned this, but just making sure that mopeds don't leave any of these stores without,
The problem with that is that it requires a change in the legislation.
But it's against the law to drive a moped without a license plate, right?
No, absolutely.
Yeah, correct. But is it against the law to sell a moped without a license plate?
No.
It's not against the law. Yeah, so maybe we can advocate for that.
Right, we can advocate for that.
Yeah.
But from the cars.
And even for cars, they can leave the car with the temporary plate, which is an issue because then they buy a fake temporary plate and then.
They avoid tolls. But I think, just to zoom out on the whole conversation, and I sent some edits over to Jesse and Christine, but I think the moped issue is completely out of control. And I know that I may be on it as someone who bikes all the time and has bikes with batteries and motors so I can lug my 9-year-old and 4-year-old and not break my back around. I think that their e-bikes can be a great solution for families. There's a lot of families in our neighborhood who have them. I think it's a great solution for last mile delivery. I don't know about 4 wheels or 48 inches, but I think it is in many ways can be the future of a greener, safer New York City. But I completely understand that 9th Avenue does feel like chaos right now. And I think the low hanging fruit to me is the mopeds, which are not allowed in the bike lane, certainly not allowed on the sidewalk, and they're not allowed to not have a license plate. The challenge with this is, having read this New York Times article, people are renting these mopeds from, a guy in Queens that their friend knows, and they're not coming with a license plate. It's a big, hard, complicated challenge, but it does feel like enforcement, and I like the idea of like a education period of enforcement where we're educating to these asylum seekers driving the mopeds or anybody driving a moped. Hey, you're getting a warning today, but starting January 1st, we are ticketing for real on 9th Avenue every day. Anybody,
So my thinking on that one idea that I had was, again, if I don't know if it's off by the article, but basically, as we all know, migrants, they don't have right to work. So they can't get hired anywhere. They're just sitting in our city, desperately looking for employment to make ends meet, to feed their families, to send money home, whatever it might be. And so to do that, they are on the black market, getting mopeds, renting them for the week, sometimes, and then using someone else's code to make deliveries. And then sometimes, sometimes they get paid by the person whose code they're using, sometimes they don't. It's a very
desperate situation.
It's a very desperate situation, and it's very. So one of my thoughts on this, there was a couple, one way to think about it, right, is okay, well, do you want to go to the delivery companies and talk about, cracking down on sharing the codes and stuff like that. How do we feel about that? But basically cutting off the income source. I actually think though a better way to do it, and which would hopefully maybe kill 2 birds with 1 stone, is actually try to cut the moped issue off at the source and incentivize going back to biking. We were making deliveries on bikes for a long time before mopeds came along. I think that is still possible. I think, in fact, maybe what we should be talking about is a program to be handing out more bikes and giving them away for free, or having some sort of share program, like specifically for migrants, delivery drivers, and saying, listen, now you're not gonna have to jump through all the hoops of renting a moped and paying all, and maybe getting screwed at the end of the day. Here's a bike, it is yours to share for free, whatever, make use of it, what you will. I don't know that could lead to any other host of problems that I cannot think of right now, but I think that at least I think we need to, where the enforcement for me needs to take place is anyone who is illegally renting out mopeds to people who don't have a license or aren't registered to do so. Like, that is enforcement that we can do. Those are people who can have those mopeds seized, taken away. They can't do that anymore. I'm a little uncomfortable though taking away the only source of income that the people in the city have. And so on the flip side, if you're encouraging them to bike and returning to a culture of biking versus mopeding or past e-biking even, that may be a solution. That is the only somewhat creative, if not stupid, solution that I could think of, but that is what I present to you all.
I like that. I think that we have to think, why are they getting these mopeds and fast throttle e-bikes? Because it would be easier for them just to buy a cheap, used bike. So I guess they want the moped and they want, and that's because of the way the apps make them work.
No, and also because the mopeds now, they are not taking electric mopeds anymore. They are
Gas.
gas
Yeah,
mopeds because they can't charge them.
Right.
Which is the other thing, right? So there are so many incentives, the app, the rent, the moped, it's just,
Just
I
so
think
you
if
think
you-
there's too many variables that we would
I
have
think there is,
to.
I think it's a beautiful idea. I mean, I don't know whether, you know, it's just like the trade program, the cops could take the moped and give them a bike instead, right?
Because it's not
And
really
that's
taking
like,
that, they're not the ones who are owning them. The mopeds are not the like the people who own the mopeds and are selling the mopeds or renting out the mopeds. These are people who live here and can have other sources of income.
Well, the reason why they're doing this, is because they were quick to speed, so it's kind of like putting the toothpaste back in the,
Right.
in the tube, unfortunately, because you have people who want their stuff right away, they're relying on tips, or stuff like that. I mean, that leads me a little bit there, a little bit off. I think we should prioritize delivery fees and specify where we want that money to go in terms of infrastructure and street life.
Well, we
Because
have
that's
that in the
where-
letter.
I know that's what I'm saying, but we should put it on top because that is key. I think Charles Kamenoff wrote something, a paper on that. It's one of the policy ones, wrote a paper that how the fees could really help infrastructure and these people out. It could be a money where they can get these people decent electric bikes with proper batteries and proper stuff. Once the delivery fees start to collect it.
Yeah.
I think it's making the apps provide the tools that they need,
Well,
because.
I think,
Well, that's
yeah,
what
and
it
I think that is important. I think that also is important. I mean, the technology exists, right? Where we are, I mean, not only should we can say, okay, it was not possible for your delivery driver to get from point A to point B unless they were going at a speed that only a moped could go or bike could go, but we're this consistently, they're out, you know, we could do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, like, I mean, that's the top level thing, and then maybe how they get broken down, you know, but at a minimum, we should be putting
When you say we can do
onus
that,
on.
who's gonna monitor that and enforce that?
Okay, but we resolve everything, guys.
All right, I understand.
This is like this is such a complicated
No, I know,
subject. and
Well, I
we're
just- but that's how we got to this letter, by throwing out everything you could think of and saying,
No, you're right.
take one of these things. And, you know, I do think, listen, our letter already calls for tracking of
No, we don't,
drivers.
we say.
And we already say all that, and we should be saying, okay, and it's gonna cost you if your drivers are going a certain speed. And maybe at that point, it's no longer, the incentive structure is no longer to make a deliveries as fast as possible. It is to make deliveries responsibly.
And there is like a race to the bottom effect of like, these are companies competing with each other.
Exactly.
If there's laws that are like, well, you know, DoorDash, like you just can't go X speed, but like Grubhub knows that do the same company, but like, you know, what I mean? Like, if all the companies realize all the other companies can't allow their drivers to go fast within a certain speed, and that law is gonna be enforced,
Then that's fine.
then whatever, then they just start showing slower speeds in the apps and people change their expectations. But my point is that as long as it's consistent, the companies will adapt.
And so, thank you. Sorry, Richard, you've been cut off just because you've been out of my line of view, so I'm very sorry. I know.
Hear your thoughts, which are all really good. I want to point out a couple things. One, we've been trying to get the apps to the table for 2 or 3 months. Natalie from Portland's office, she's killing herself on this. Nothing. It's just evil people.
And Gail Brewer has been trying to, but she can't get it either. So those people are not easy.
No, and again, the mayor is just completely absent on this. I'm surprised you got into the specifics on the enforcement, but as long as you did, it's our opinion that we need a flying squad. 10 to 30 cops that are centrally based and go around to different neighborhoods. If you give this to the precincts, nothing's gonna happen. I mean, look at this week at Midtown North. These guys are all over the place.
But you see, Richard, my concern is that, first of all, the stats, when they are a central unit, we don't get the stats per location. So they are going to say, oh, we did everything, you know, this is what we did. And then we don't have the stats per location. But the second thing is, you know, I don't know, every central unit, first of all, they are not enough. Second, they are taken away. Third, it would be ideal if it was becoming part of their job. You know,
I'm talking about a totally dedicated unit that we all participated in setting up, monitoring, work closely with.
You'll see, I'm fine with it, and you'll see, I really, I believe it doesn't work, but I'm not an expert. I have had experience with some central units, and those central units usually, it's like, oh, we have to come and get the truck unit. Well, we can't come today, we have to come in 3 days or in 1 week, and then mobilize, and then they go away. So my experience for those things with the bus companies has been very frustrating, but I'm just sharing that with you. I'm fine. I'm fine with whatever we do.
All right, the only other thing I wanted to mention on this one is that Eric Roger took this to Ingrid meetings.
Yes.
And we gave him a list of items,
right,
to go talk about. No, blind squad. I like that. Whether anything comes.
Where is Ingrid with? Is she with? It might be Ingrid.
She's like the mayor's wife.
Shadow mayor, right?
So, against.
Oh,
Ripping out bike lanes in Brooklyn.
Right.
She's gonna get his
I think
head
she
off.
probably thought that was an execution squad, and she said, oh, yeah.
She like the word squad.
Squad.
Can I have a quick question?
Yeah.
The ad companies, are they in franchise, any kind of franchise agreements with the city? They just open up?
No. But by the way, I think if they're not coming to the table, then that's even more reason to start advocating for legislation. That, it's their job to be part of these conversations from the jump, and if they're ignoring us, then we get to write it. Then go ahead, have the city assembly, have the city council go ahead and write their laws.
I think the letter calls for hubs, and someone mentioned that too. And
yes,
I don't think it's a problem, people using public space and a kid bouncing a ball and bike route, but I do think it is, you go down 9th Avenue at dinner time, and it's just hundreds of people waiting for the next.
They need hubs, they need places for bathrooms and
battery charging, or, all of it.
Okay, that is a separate issue. So just on the enforcement. What we have just so far in terms of enforcement, and then this conversation is still open up for other ideas or having way, but is some sort of either roving undercover police or putting enforcement in critical spaces and soliciting from community for what intersections to be prioritized, and then as part of that, having them give warnings for 3 to 6 months. Also potentially part of that, having as a what do you call it, a flying unit? What do you call it? Flying squad, which meaning not tied to any particular district, but having it dedicated to this one particular task. And then I have a point of sale being more enforced in terms of mopeds not being able to leave the stores without full license plates.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Point of rental.
Point of rental, yeah.
Oh, point of rental too.
Given what we learned about how some of these bikes are being rented.
You get the.
Why don't we use traffic police that are already in place?
Well, I don't think they also,
With the flying squad, I would like to add that we give them specific locations and times.
That's what we.
Yeah.
In there, you said locations.
I'm sorry, I will add times.
Right. They need to get that from the community.
And times.
Sweet, I'll be there.
No.
So I want delivery fee to be on the top.
I'm just curious, sorry, what do you think?
I would like the delivery fee to be on top.
We have that.
No,
I'm not on that, we just solved the prioritization conversation for a second, sorry, thank you. It's still about enforcement, so as anyone, again, because this issue is, and I'm trying to summarize, I think what everyone's thinking, which is there's a balance between how effective actually is enforcement. We obviously have a distrust of NYPD in terms of discretion, and there's a bad history there. And so there is some reticence on that on one side of the scale, right? When we talk about enforcement, and on the other side of the scale, this is an app problem that is absolutely out of control. And truly one of the few ways to change behavior on kids would be to start ticketing. I do think we could. Okay, but what are ideas about ticketing versus seizing versus does that make a difference between I'm going to fine you versus I will be taking your method of earning an income? But maybe we suggest one or the other because that makes us, maybe we say it should only be ticketing versus, I'm just speaking,
No, that's
I'm not advocating for.
I think the problem with the seizing is that then the person who was using that bike, which was renting, now they have to pay the price of the whole bike.
Yeah.
To the company they were renting from.
Yeah.
Which on one hand, you can say this is not a big deal, but on the other hand, these are people which have nothing.
Yeah.
So this is pretty crazy. So I would think it's more effective to say with tickets.
If it's an illegal
I
rental,
also
you have to pay. If it's an illegal rental, you can't enforce something that's illegal. So if they're renting it illegally, the company can't enforce them.
Yeah, they can.
I don't know if it's a company though, it might be a loan shark,
Yeah, if it's-
It's a
Small
nice
shark.
round.
Tough guy.
Right, and they said, okay, I rent it to you, and now, but you're supposed to bring it back, and if we are not bringing it back, we're going to break your back. And here we go.
Well, so
This is life out there.
Yeah, that's good.
That's life out there. I mean, this is not, these people are not in the life like us.
So the question is, does
People and-
seizing actually solve the problem versus ticketing? I actually don't think it does. I just think it puts people in a worse hole. Very big fan of it, but like I was in Cape Town in January and the Uber drivers there all have to have permits. And their checkpoints will pop up randomly. And if they get stopped and they don't have a permit, their car will be seized. But that has not stopped everyone. The number of times that I was asked to get into the driver's seat or into the passenger seat to pretend that I was the driver, to pretend that to evade, but of course, and it just puts them in a deeper hole to get them to start the process all over again and makes the problem even worse. So I do think when we're talking about enforcement, I mean, there's no guarantee that even enforcement will work, but I do think all things being equal, the less pernicious option is ticketing.
Also thinking about the mechanics. Police take the bike.
Yes, they
It's
don't
not
have
like-
space.
it's What, right.
And they don't have
And
space.
then how do you return the bike,
Sorry.
and who do you return the bike?
Yeah.
with? I mean.
All right, so what I would like to include is that we are now doing the ticketing rather than.
Just to play devil's advocate on ticketing, is there a way someone who's living in a hotel receives and pays a ticket? I mean,
Either way, but then it is a broader point of enforcement in general and the effectiveness, which is why I think when we do talk about prioritizations, we actually think about what is the most prioritization should include not just what is the easiest to implement, but also actually what would be the most effective. And this is not me saying by any means that we don't need more, we do, and we need some sort of, we need some period of time where people who are driving so recklessly are actually afraid of the consequences. That just has to be the case, otherwise behavior will not change.
That's fine.
But in the long term, this is the systemic issue will not be solved unless the other things that we're talking about in terms of apps and education and design, street design are not implemented. Anything else specifically on enforcement and this is more, police enforcement, et cetera? Yes.
Yeah, we have this statement about wearing vests.
Yes.
Which isn't going to really happen. You can't wear one vest, they all work for different companies.
but what if Grubhub was fined every time somebody in a Grubhub vest, is going the wrong way? That was the way it used to work. If you had Me Noodle Shop on your back, you broke the law.
Right.
Me Noodle Shop got in trouble. Now they all work for Grubhub, so let's find Grubhub every single time.
Why isn't that? Actually, I'm genuinely asking, why is that not already?
We have to prove somehow that the person.
We don't have to, that they're working, all right, that's part of enforcement, all right, we're putting that under, and I do think.
Come in, just a suggestion. The vest with the name of employer, first of all, I don't think they're considered employees, so we need to scratch the contract. But I think we need something more, and I certainly don't like putting identification on something. But maybe we could have something where the deliverista picks out 3 letters with a number for his own identification.
That's fine, yeah, I don't think we would name something.
Yeah.
I mean, a name sometimes.
No, we
you want something that's easy to be
The
recognized.
goal was not about names. The goal was to have a number, you pick a number, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it. So from far away, people could see it was Grubhub 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay,
That's it.
yeah,
And then you
but
could-
the number should be particular to the person, not
Yes,
to the company.
it was.
Okay.
It was.
All right, so
So it
let's,
was a combination of, Grubhub or mom and pop, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
So, mom and pop could tell you 1, 2, 3, 4 is Joe.
is Joe. So let's just clean up the language of it.
That's fine, I agree, and I'll do that. And also, just going back to the very first thing that you said about enforcement, I just think the way that the letter is written, if enforcement ends up in 5 different places,
Yes.
it needs to be
We need to
all
move
one
it
that
to
is
one
one that is
place.
there.
Right.
Okay, I think we can move on from the enforcement discussion, if that's, so, I think from here, we just talked about all the things that came up in conversation that might want to be included in the letter, and then we'll move on to prioritization. One of the recurring things that I just kept hearing, and I just don't know if we've fully, I maybe missed it in the letter, I'm forgetting, but basically, right, like, the very simple idea of everyone staying in their lane of like, motorists stay in the traffic, like bikes go to bikes, pedestrians to the sidewalk. I mean, is that just broadly fit under, is there any special solution for that is not? Because like a lot of this is about speed and about direction, but is there anything else that we're missing in terms of solving that particular problem?
Well, there is the whole discussion of what is a bike and what belongs in the bike lane. We heard that multiple times, right? People say, okay, if you have a bike or you have a pedal assist, you are in the bike lane. Do the other things belong in the bike lane? And that's a bigger question. So I think we had resolved that in the letter by saying, well, if you go up to 15 or 18 miles per hour, you're in the bike lane. If you are more than that, you have to go out. Which was our way of saying, up to a certain level, you are in the bike lane. This is the definition. I don't know how to make a definition about the electric bikes, which are, level 2, level 3. I can't even articulate what they are and what their standards are. I think if we could say, look, if your bike can go up to this, that's it. You get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what those classifications are.
Right.
I mean, above, the ones that go 30 miles an hour.
Right.
Or you have different rules.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, certainly nothing should be going faster than New York City speed limit, which is 25.
Right, for sure.
And the white city bikes go 18. I think that's what's
it.
referenced in the letter as
Right.
I think that's a reasonable cap. 15 is probably also
Right.
reasonable. But then you have the problem of what do you do with all city bikes that go 18? But, I mean, I think this just very clearly stating that mopeds are already not allowed in the bike
No,
lane, should not be there. Shouldn't
And
be.
anything which is above 18 shouldn't be there,
And maybe that is a place for more police enforcement on that particular issue, because that is not a discretionary, it's less of a discretionary issue, it is something that can but right, like you see that, it's easy for them to identify, it's an easy ticket for them to write. Your moped is in the bike lane.
It's easy for them to identify bikes going the wrong way in the bike lane.
That's it.
That's it.
Or you are on the sidewalk.
On the sidewalk. They're not.
It's not clear to us. I mean, it's very easy to enforce, but they are not enforcing. It's easy to enforce for the cars, it's easy to enforce for the bikes, and they are just not enforcing. The question is, what's going to happen? And what you were saying, which is like, they go out and they do a lot of noise to show up force. And I mean, personally, I'm nervous, but we'll see. I mean, I just don't think they're going to enforce. That's it.
But okay,
Right, but that's
sorry.
good. We should-
No, that is good. Sorry, we go back to the traffic. What are the traffic? Are they police? Are they traffic police? What are they? Traffic?
No, the people who direct the traffic.
No, they'll give tickets for parking.
There's something.
They cannot do anything that's moving.
Right, right.
Got it.
The only thing they can do is gridlock, because indeed, if you are in the gridlock, you are not moving. Right. So but by the way, once that was moved, once it was, passed, then the cops say, I don't want them to do it, we'll do it.
Okay.
So they are not
okay,
going to do it.
so there's more stress on.
Have there been calls for DOT to take on enforcement? I know parking enforcement, maybe not moving.
We can make a call, but the last time I made a call, it didn't go well.
All right, well, I think it is worth beefing up the language just specifically about mopeds and bike lanes, somewhere.
Well, and
And side-
anything which is
Oh,
about
sorry.
18.
Yeah, and I think about it, yeah.
And then in there, we could also talk about a cargo bike if we want to say.
Yes, the cargo
The
bike.
4 wheels cargo bike.
Is anyone here for the cargo
Don't
bike in the bike
belong
lane?
there, which, yeah, I mean, they would if it was wider, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just,
It doesn't make it, because they've already, sorry, I can make that.
sorry, I just, yeah, they seem a little wide. I don't have my head around what 48 inches really means in a bike lane. I'd have to get it.
No, but 4
measuring
wheels,
tape.
to me, 4 wheels just.
Yeah, but it is a human pedaling inside this 4-wheel
Yes.
box,
Yeah.
which, you know, is a little different, but I just,
So forget about it.
I'm just thinking of every FedEx and Amazon truck that's in my neighborhood.
No, I agree.
Like, that's why giant tractor trailers that unload Amazon packages, and I see this as the future, maybe not in the bike.
No, I agree too, but I think it doesn't actually need to be, like, I agree with you, and it's something I thought about, but I thought like, well, it still kind of solve the problem if they're in the traffic lane.
Yeah.
You know, like it's,
Maybe some language saying, while we support this as the future of last mile delivery, perhaps not in the bike lane.
Right.
Yeah, my question is about the sidewalk. The cargo bikes can park on the sidewalk, but if it's illegal to ride on the sidewalk, how could they then pass a law to allow you to ride on the sidewalk? So the law wouldn't be upheld in court, right? We'd have to take the law to court.
No,
Unless you can
Make
make
it
it
a new law.
Yeah, but it makes no sense.
That's what I'm saying. I don't-
It makes no
it's just
sense.
if you're over the age of 12, you're not allowed to ride.
Right, but this is like,
So now you're saying these cargo bikes are allowed, that it's a conflict of the existing
Yes.
law.
yeah.
So
It,
it's gonna have to go to court.
well, no, it's not passed yet. The rules is not passed.
Right.
We gave the comments.
So we need to put that in, that it's,
Well, we will do that.
I think we also think these cargo bikes have to unload somewhere, right? And there's some streets where there's no loading zone, and there's nothing but parked cars and moving cars, and there's no way for them, so, you know.
No, the rules was proposing to add a large number of
Yeah,
bike delivery zone.
which is.
I think that is a gray area, like, obviously you can't, like, move quickly, but if you ride up to the side, just enter the parking spot and stop. I think that is genuine, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer in bike law, but like, I don't think there's a statement that's like, you may not even for a second enter just for parking with like at a very low velocity directly from the street. That's how people do, people actually ride on the sidewalk like 20-30 feet at like full speed before they even reach the parking spot, which is what we obviously want to stop, but
Right.
whether you can just have like directly enter from the street to the parking spot.
I don't know.
I think that's a great area.
And
Like,
from the
you can
street
get out
to
and
the
walk.
parking, but you can't move your truck up,
You need to.
right?
Okay.
You
Yeah,
only
I
have to come to the phone.
No, it doesn't make a lot of sense in practice, but in theory, people are like, well, I just came right from the
Well,
street.
that's the concern, is that people are going to make the case, which is not. Okay,
I have two more and then prioritization, and then we can close this, but the two more issues that I heard. Being brought up, just batteries and Jen's battery issue. It really is, I mean, like, you know, people are dying because these things are exploding. I don't know how to differentiate those from the e-bikes that you drive that are presumably not exploding.
UL ratings.
But, okay, so
I
how
think
do
there's a
we?
new council bill.
There's a new-
that-
Is there a bill?
Right, right, it's like a separate. matter.
And then the only other thing that I saw, you know, was just about better data collection,
Yeah, I would put that.
and it's pretty true, and we'll change the signers on the petition, and I'm gonna sign on the petition, no problem. But we'll improve, we have a call to collect better data and to,
Right.
and I think someone brought up some specific language about what's missing in the data collection, and we'll put that in about,
Yeah, no, this is like, there is a field to capture, right? And the problem is that the field is not it's not multiple selection. You know, the field is free form. So today, if you look at what is captured, instead of a truck, you'll have, oh, it's a Mack red, or it's a red car. it's like, it makes no sense. What they need is to need to have a multiple selection.
Well, why don't we just say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the multiple selection needs
That's
to include, you know, the multiple types of.
Include multiple
of
types.
bikes.
Of-
And but it needs to be a drop-down option rather than what they have today.
That's
You
easy
take
enough.
it, you take it down, it makes no sense, even for the current.
Great, better sense. Excellent. That's all I have for like anything that what we heard from the community this evening. Does anyone have anything else that they heard that they think we have not discussed this evening? Or anything they would like to generate on their own, creative solutions, ideas, solutions?
I would say one solution that hasn't been talked about, is the fast lane. Like, I know on the West Side Highway, the borough president is promoting, like, maybe let's take a lane away from the West Side Highway and have, that's where the, 20-mile-an-hour riders go, so my 9-year-old can ride in the West Side Highway without being cut off by these guys. 10th Avenue has an extra wide bike lane. We'll see how that goes. I think it might be, hopefully there's more room for passing and it feels less chaotic, I don't know. But I mean, long-term solution, if I'm being honest, I'd love to take away a lane of traffic and have a moped lane. Or have a micro mobility lane. Long-term, just to, I don't know if that goes in this letter, but.
I hadn't said that. I don't know, it's obviously long term, I feel like.
But we have in the.
And here's the thing, it's like, I don't, we have to choose these carefully, like.
Maybe a broad infrastructure thing that we support, continuing to widen our bike lanes so that we can handle the increased traffic from micromobility.
Okay.
And that might already.
Put it in the SDN. Put it in the statement of district needs.
Well, yeah, but we are doing the letter, right?
Yeah, I don't think it belongs in the letter. I think it belongs in the statement of district needs.
Well, in the letter, the letter has already a statement about.
It does, it's hard to remember what's in this, it's a very long letter.
It's 8 pages, I have it here.
Yeah.
But I also want to make sure that delivery fee is on
We
the
have
top.
that.
It is definitely on here, yeah.
On the top though.
All right, we're good.
Well,
Let's move to what's on the top. Before we move to what's on top, any other ideas? That doesn't,
That's it.
and then we're done. So, what any other ideas that we want to address in the letter? Okay, now we move to prioritization, just a few items that we want to have prioritized. What we already have in the bucket is corrals. David Warren, take it away.
And the delivery fee, I think first of all, especially now with the budget stuff happening and things like that. The positive of this is that if we can designate where we would like this delivery fee number to go to, the infrastructure. Also for helping some of these people out with the bikes and street life, just other street life. To collect these fees from these companies.
Well, I think we want that, but it's not, keep in mind that we are doing, the goal is to resolve the issue of riding on the sidewalk.
But this,
Right.
because
So
give us
delivery
money to make the sidewalk.
Wider,
infrastructure
so that
better, right?
they get more space.
Like corrals and stuff like that, yes, that's what the fee would be.
No, you don't want, right now we're trying to say what are the things we could do so that people don't ride on the sidewalk. Now, we're talking about urgency, we're not talking about, yes, it's a good idea, but you put a delivery fee, first of all, we need a law, and then we need the guys to do this, and then we need to build the sidewalk. So this is like
So then
three
we-
steps, which.
Okay, so then I switch it to loaded to cargo bike loading, so.
Well, that's, okay, but that's what we're talking about, the corrals, right, that take care of that.
Not the cargo bikes.
No, but I mean, it's kind of the same thing.
No, they want to park the bikes on these big huge bikes, the corrals would be like like the new mobile.
Well, I think we also said that just in general, delivery, anything delivery related, company related, should be building their own hubs for their drivers to take breaks and park, et cetera.
But then that's at the location of delivery. What about, okay, so we said education, I think we said, well, I mean, you know, the enforcement has to be at the top three, because that's what everybody's saying.
Right, so how about enforcement, corrals, and education?
Okay. Good.
Yeah, we got a
I
second.
have a motion there.
Take a second to look at the left real quick. There are a lot of ideas there. I don't want to. I know it's late. I know we're, although who was with us till 11:30 on the BLP committee. Oh man, that's all right. Yeah.
I would make case to put like moped enforcement over, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, it's all.
It's all good.
You know what?
I'm
anything
highly
to the other
skeptical
side.
that education will work. I do think these things are available online, like you can Google bike rules. If you're even remotely
Yeah, but
curious.
education also includes education about consequences too. But go ahead, sorry.
But like, here's the thing, there probably are a lot of people already trying to follow the rules. I suspect the majority of people on the bike lane, including, there are probably many people who are doing this app-based things that are really doing their best to follow the rules, but you don't notice the people. But for the like minority of people that are gonna break the rules either because they just need to make
But then that's the
income to feed their
enforcement.
family, or because they don't care. Like, no amount of education is going to easily convince them, like, I think people already know it's against the rules, even if you're in another.
Even
even
I was like, honestly, I'm not trying to. I don't think we were here on the committee, we heard testimony from the deliveristas. Education is actually a larger, like lack of knowledge about the city's rules and the way that, because the people, they come here from where, you know, different countries, and they follow what the other people are doing, and it's not necessarily clear. Yeah, and it's not necessarily clear that it just isn't how things work here, because there are so many other cities around the world where that is kind of how it works, where traffic goes in all different directions, you know, so I was surprised to learn when they came and testified that how much of an issue that is. So I actually do think that it is something that we should be prioritizing.
You know, Richard opened up his presentation, something that we should be aware of, and that's culture, bike culture. So when we say, well, why can't we be like Amsterdam? Why can't we be? They've been doing this for 100 years. I mean, bikes, and this is the way they got around for 100 years before they ever got cars. So when you're in New York, there's a culture here that is not going to be fixed by, you know, education. If you start early enough, maybe what they're trying to do in the schools with young kids about being respectful, being cognizant about how to ride a bike. But the culture here, it's New York City at the end of the day. And it's not going to become an Amsterdam or Barcelona or.
So we're talking just about educating the people that just arrived.
Yeah.
From the boat and have no idea.
I'm not talking about the folks that are just around. I'm talking about the.
No,
folks that
that's
have been here for 30 years.
That's what we're talking about here, mostly. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's some, when a city bike person is riding on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Then
that's
they're
not
not
that.
moving, they're not a movie like immigrant.
But then get a ticket, that's what.
Oh, yeah, that's why we have enforcement, that's why we need some form of enforcement.
So, and point of sale, but that would be the enforcement. too,
Yeah,
point
I know.
of sale.
The problem is, it kind of moots the idea of prioritization if we just put in all enforcement and all, because that's half the letter.
Of the enforcement.
Yeah,
Enforcement.
It can't be that simple, sorry.
So what are the top three you have now?
Well, right now it's education, enforcement, and corrals, so.
But like within enforcement.
No, we need to, that's what I mean, but we need to choose one or two within enforcement, so I do think it's, well, I don't know.
Well, this is the fly group.
Sure, that's one, and then on the other side of the scale, then we should have upping fines for the app and delivery, you know,
Yeah, and making them responsible.
and making it responsible and the insurance and all that
So
stuff.
that would
Yeah.
be part of that.
So
Yeah, okay.
so we'll have two sides of enforcement on the drivers, enforcement on the apps. Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good. Okay. Would anyone like me to summarize the changes, or we feel kind of like, you feel good about them, you're gonna see them, you're gonna love them, these are the best changes as you've ever seen. Okay, but we do need to vote on all we just discussed, so all in favor of the changes that we have discussed them.
That will be sort of.
Wait, a motion, I need a motion, not me. For what?
Could you summarize?
Everything Jesse has said.
Yeah.
Here we
That's
go.
the best one I've ever heard. No, a number, I will break this down as very quickly, I promise.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not gonna quickly summarize.
Okay.
We are just, everything we talk about, that's the motion on the table to adopt.
Exactly.
We have a second.
And the prioritization we talked about.
And we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Present not eligible or abstaining? Anyone on?
That's us. No.
No, he's not. This is us. Great. That item is closed. Thank you all for, I actually really wasn't so good. Yeah, sure. Close us out.
One, this is great work. I know that you're not going to cover everything and you're not going to be perfect on everything, but you're all moving the ball forward, and that's what really counts.
Thank you.
And that progress will live and learn and get better. So
Cool.
we all appreciate it.
No, thanks for the working great. Really, we need it.
No, really, I want you to understand that you're definitely moving things forward.
Great.
So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the project. All right, we are moving on to the last item on our agenda, which is the fiscal year 2025 statement of district needs and budget requests. It's not nearly as bad as it sounds because it's kind of just the primer for this conversation. And if she allows me, I'm gonna kick it over to Christine to explain.
Why not?
Hey, you know you're not better.
You did a lot. Okay. August.
What?
You're coming in the ranges.
Did you? Colleen, no, we just hear this when there was a mom then.
So every year, for those of you who are not familiar with that, so every year the city prepares a budget, right? And if you work backward from that, you know, the first place where they're going is the agencies and the community board. And the community boards come in and say, okay, this is what we need. So we prepare a statement of district needs. And essentially what we do is we kind of take all the letters we have done during the year and we regroup them in addition to what we have done good last year. So we have like a body of asks or requests that we've been tracking. So we pull all that stuff together, we send it to the city, they respond to it, and then we send a final. Right, so when we put our stuff together, we also try to go to our elected officials and say, look, we really want you to push for those things because they have. So this is the first step of the process. We're supposed to look at what we had last year, add and remove from last year. And then in 1 month, we'll have like the final, and then we'll give it to the budget task force on which I am, and then we'll go from there. So I want to talk to you about, I will send you a separate document which says these are all the transportation stuff. But let me read what we got from last year. Where is that? Do we have a? What are they doing here?
Christine.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Okay. Yeah, I put it up there, but obviously. Yeah, so transportation, so we got a whole bunch of things done last year, right? We had 4 sidewalk extension, which were installed. We got the study of the shared street on Hudson Boulevard. The study was done, they are now working on the implementation. The open street programs is done. Essentially, there is money going into those things. 10th Avenue is done. The protected bike lanes on 10th Avenue. We are starting to implement that.
Does it matter if they're doing half next year? And half?
Yeah, we'll keep that as a continuing, support, right? Study bus lane, protected bike lane. Signal timing, we didn't get that. But we didn't get anything of that. Study the location, tour garage, the bus garage, we are working on that. And these are the capital. This is the other one. We got a whole bunch of ADA compliant ramps in the neighborhood. We got a whole bunch of islands in concrete, but, Charlie, if you could go over 10 and 11th Avenue and see which one are missing.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere that's not concrete should be concrete, and there's definitely a lot of.
But we need,
8th Avenue too.
we need a list of.
Okay.
Because they had committed to a list, and then we need to have a list that we want to put in there. Reconstruct 9th Avenue, no, that's it. So that's it. Oh, and resurface 8th Avenue bike lane, which they are doing right now. So of what we asked last year, we really got a lot, right? We did really well. So what I'll do is I'll send you a cleanup version, which has the things which have not been done, plus the things of this year, and you can look at it and maybe we'll do a prioritization and stuff.
Can people add to it too, or no?
No, you can't add because these are the things on which we have passed away.
Passed already, thank you, okay.
So we need to have a past resolution, and I already put them in.
Okay.
So you look at it and say, okay, this is all we have. But we should discuss if there are something that are not there, we should put them on the agenda
For later.
for a meeting, right?
I have to put zip lines all over Chelsea.
Exactly. So that's what's going on.
You can work it into the narrative.
Yeah, a little bit, but they don't look at, the end of the day, they don't look at the map.
They don't look at- I'm surprised they look at this.
They look at the list and they respond to the list.
Great.
So that's it. So this is not too painful. You'll get a document and you'll know what to do with it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, that is item 4. Item 5 is old/new business. Does anyone have any old business, grudges, like they can bring up or anything new?
Had two, however, police not here, so.
That's great. Well, I mean, not great.
24th Street, 22nd Street, right?
Oh,
And 24th Street, Common.
got it.
They were supposed to do a survey. or
So the
something.
24th Street County, I put it in the budget.
Oh, okay.
The
Because
24th.
because we did a letter
We
on
did a letter.
Wait, you mean 22nd?
22nd,
We did,
24th.
well, we did one for 22nd also, like a follow-up.
Which one?
The 22nd.
To replace,
Oh, for 22nd, right?
Well,
Yeah.
the which I just took pictures
That's
of
the
this
one.
evening.
That's the one.
Yeah,
To replace the bikes.
it's there, they put it, it's not, I don't know how effective it is, but I went past today. I mean, so far they have a plan.
Oh, no, that's the 22nd. No,
This is the
no,
22nd. Oh,
I'm
okay.
not talking about,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
talking about the one where.
corner of 11.
Yeah, corner of 11.
The bike station,
Right,
With the, okay.
which is now being used as parking for a private.
construction,
No, construction's finished.
private enterprise.
Yeah, there's a private school there that's using it for parking.
Okay, so I put this one,
With a note, this car has been given permission to park in this,
oh, very efficient.
yeah, on their letterhead.
No.
On their letterhead.
So sorry, we're waiting for, I just wanted for later, this will be on the agenda item for another meeting.
No,
to
we
follow
have
up on
it.
this stuff.
We have it and I put it in the budget.
Oh, great.
And then when they come back on the budget, then we can start advocating again. But the way to advocate is to go to the elected officials, right? No, that's not our job, we essentially advocate.
Okay. Anyone else, all new business? Is there a motion to adjourn? Always counts. Second, all in favor, all in favor.
Tomorrow?
Seeing no one opposed, we are out of here. Thank you for everyone who gave comments online. Thank you for all who attended and stayed with us. We're so appreciative. We hope we can incorporate all into this letter and do traffic path around with that good night. And thank you so much, Natalie. Have a good night.
Good night.